GP. Everyone being cautious, they know it's a long race. Still 21 laps to go. So we just started the race and already we're seeing so much action on track. Hello and welcome to MotorMotion E-Series, where we return for the second to last round in the Player One Sim Gear GT3 Championship at Season 2, Round 9 of 10, and we're heading to Spain. We're heading to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, with the no chicane layout today. There's 33 years of history at this circuit, hosting the Formula One, the Grand Prix motorcycle racing, the World SBK, and the ELMS alongside the GT World Challenge Europe. This FIA Grade 1 and 2 circuit boasts a capacity of 140,700, yes, 700 people along the grandstands, of which we have a large grandstand today and a good viewing out there to witness the penultimate round of the GT3 Championship. The team's titles all wrapped up, but we have a few questions, especially around our elite and pro categories today. 4.6 kilometer circuit, that's 2.8 miles and just over 14 corners at the no chicane layout. This is going to be a round. It is a critical round for a number of drivers. As I said before, we've got the team's title wrapped up, we've got the AM class wrapped up, and the Pro-Ams wrapped up. It's all coming down to the last two rounds for the elite and the pro category. It's time to get into it. And of course, in the commentary booth and broadcasting box, my name is George Cooke, and I'm joined here with Nick Pautasso and our pit lane reporter, Andrew Scott, for what bodes to be a very exciting round of racing and Nick's last round of the season, because he's off on holiday. He is heading to a fantastic long holiday, a very well-deserved holiday. Nick, this is the final round for you. You know, we know you'll be watching on for the final round wherever you are in the world.
Absolutely, and it's going to be a bit of a sweet end to my last 2024 MotorMotion E-Series Player One Sim Gear GT3 Championship. It's going to be good fun here at Catalunya. I will say it's not my favourite track out of the 10 rounds that we've had in this season. Obviously, every time we go, every round, every track, I always like to say it's my favourite track. The next track, it's my favourite track, favourite track. Get to Catalunya, it's not my favorite. It's probably one of my worst ones. Obviously, probably because myself, I'm on the controller, so I hear for those controller drivers that it's not good for us, but there are quite a few of those drivers on the grid, especially in the elite class, in the hands of Dan Wood and a few others as well in the Pro-Am and the AM class. So they'll be getting themselves a little bit of a workout on that tyre wear, on those tyres, and a bit of fuel saving being mixed around here. But I'm here for the journey. I'm very excited to commentate this last round in 2024, and it's great to do it with you gentlemen in the commentary booth. It's been an absolute pleasure throughout the whole year, and for one last time. And Scott, it's good to have you in the pit lane. Obviously, getting into those Spanish beers down there in the pit lane. What have you been? What's the analysis that you guys are getting down the pit lane? What's the strategy going to be around when it comes to tyres, when it comes to fuel, and when it comes to racing? Because it is quite hard to overtake around this track.
G'day Nick, g'day George. Ando here, good to be back at MotorMotion again. And I've got a Tempranillo actually. I'm down at the grandstand at the braking zone for turn 1 here. This is where I'm going to start, and grabbed a Tempranillo from the wine bar there on my way down. So enjoying that. And strategy-wise, I'm hearing that the hards are actually a good race tyre this time round. So combined with the long pit stop and the fact that the hards are pretty competitive pace-wise, look for some long stints on hards today, guys, and probably the one stop will be the way to go.
Here we go. It is a tyre killer this round, and yeah, the hard tyre, no doubt it's being considered, especially given how hot it is out there on track. Our sponsor, of course, Player One Sim Gear. Go check them out, www.p1simgear.com.au. Stocking the widest range of sim gear under one virtual roof in the Australian market. Proudly sponsoring us here at the GT3 Championship since 2023. Let's talk about the race today. We're back to our usual 50-minute length. Round 9, of course, here at Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya Grand Prix. Quite the mouthful, especially when you tack on the fact that it's no chicane. In fact, the word is so long, the sentence is so long, it goes across our driver picture today. Time of day, it's going to be afternoon. All racing tyres are permitted, but we do have a racing hard tyre mandatory for the race. That is going to be no issue for our drivers today. As we understand it, everyone will be opting for a long stint on those hard tyres. The question is, will they go to mediums? Will they go to softs? Tuning prohibited as always. Drivers will be allowed to adjust their brake bias. To the track today, and as Nick indicated, can be difficult to overtake at this circuit, but you've got that very long, just over 1 kilometer pit straight that does give you a really, really good bit of slipstream. The question is, can you hold yourself together in the dirty air through that second and third sectors? Absolutely critical. Made more difficult when you do have the chicane, but without it, it's a nice run back towards the final corner. And this is maybe not your favorite, Nick, but I have to say, it is one of mine. It is a great place to go racing. I love watching the F1 here. Give us an idea, what's the trickiest part of this circuit?
I would say turn 1 through to turn 14, George. It's actually quite an interesting layout as it is, because you've got the tricky sector 2 from Repsol at turn 4 all the way up to Campsite at turn 9. That whole section of the track, it's all single file, and as we see with high downforce cars, whether it's a Formula 1 car or whether we see that the MotoGP cars motorbikes actually go through turn 9, and most of the time they're taking that corner flat. We're not going to see a lot of that with our GT3 drivers here tonight. It is quite tricky. There is quite a slight lift off at turn 9, but if you can get that turn 9 really well and get that car over the curbs without striking that half-second penalty, that cursed 1 second penalty, that would be really good. And then it's just a run through 13 to 14 at the back end of the track going on to the pit straight. You'd need to get that good exit out of 13 and 14 to set yourself up for the slipstream, because it's anywhere between 8/10 to a second where you start to gain on the driver in front.
Yeah, really critical sections in that area. Turn 10, harden the brakes through 11, 12, and 13, through into 3. Really tricky area to get right. And as he said before, you've got to get that right to make sure you get a good run back onto the pit straight. And, of course, that complex 5, 6, 7, 8, where it goes downhill into that horrible braking zone. I do love it, but it's also very, very tricky. I always get it wrong. And then up through 7 and 8 to launch yourself up through to that penalty area of turn 9. Very tricky. Andrew Scott, you've raced here quite a lot as well. We're going to see some really tricky bits of racing through those sections we've mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. They call it the crab, don't they, this track? I don't know why, but anyway, yeah, that second sector, I agree with Nick. That's the key to get right and to be quick through there, and going easy on your tyres and not get a penalty is the key. To do that repeatedly is going to be the key today. That's what the winner will achieve, I think.
So there's the word consistency once again returning to the GT3 Championship. It's going to be about consistency of pace here today. Let's take a look at the weather. Of course, it is Spain, so we are looking at the sunniest weather conditions possible in the afternoon. Dry, cloudless, and pleasant. And I'd say very hot as well. S01 is the preset weather today. And of course, afternoon is our time. Let's take a look, because we are going to be having, of course, our Group A coverage come first and then Group B next. So the Elite and Pro drivers, this is where the main championship drivers battles are happening at the moment. And Matt Donetti, critically for his chances against Lewis Atkinson, finds himself on pole position, Nick.
Absolutely. Matt Donetti on the poles yet again. So he's showing what he can do in that CP Motorsports Lamborghini Huracan, but he's yet to take a victory here, gentlemen. So can he finally break the curse? Can he break the hoodoo and try and get himself a victory? And if that's the case, it could be 6 different drivers that we have seen taken victory, or actually 7 different drivers we've taken victory in the elite category. So let that sink in, ladies and gentlemen, for what has been an excellent 2024 season. But he's got fast drivers, Lewis Atkinson in P2 lining up next to him on the first row of the grid, and then Dan Wood, my pad man, in P3, and Gopi Mahendrajit in P4. I've heard apparently the championship battle between those two guys are pretty close, between Gopi, Matt Donetti, and Lewis Atkinson for the second row of the grid. Then we have Nick Pfaff and Matt McCallum for CP Motorsports is taking a surprising pole position in the pro class as well, lining up in 6th place. So the CP boys really working through that data and really getting that Lamborghini Huracan working. An absolute treat around Catalunya, and lining up in 6th place, but first in class. Alongside him will be Mick Hill and Dean van der Zandt inside that 3rd place for pro class. So hopefully we get to see what Dean can do finally, if he can get that Audi R8 Hooncorp Esports up towards the pecking order and try and maintain his position. And then we have a 5th row of the Black Rose Racing drivers. Nathan Wakefield and Jeremy Crow lines up to round up the top 10. And then just outside the top 10, we have Glenn Mead, Drew Griffin, and Campbell Knowles, whilst we have 3 DNSs, one from Luke Stone, who I believe actually missed qualifying, so I believe he's actually going to be on the grid tonight. Chris Duncan and Daniel McDonald, who have not made a return into the series. But that is our 13-man grid, potentially 14-man, as we see Luke Stone actually coming into the pit lane, or coming on the exit of the pit lane, lining up in the pits. And looks like he might be ready to go out. But gentlemen, it's going to be a good fun race around here. Like I said, it's not my favorite, but I've heard the action around here, whether it's real world racing or sim racing, it can get very spicy around this track.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's spicy indeed. And just to let you all know, Gopi Mahendrajit is in 3rd place in the elite category, 1 point behind Matt Donetti, and they are trailing Lewis Atkinson by 11 points. So this is a critical round for the elite standings. And then also with Mick Hill qualifying in 2nd behind Jeremy Crow, also very, very critical here. Was it Jeremy Crow? Let me correct me if I'm wrong on that one, someone. It was McCallum, Matt McCallum. Sorry, my apologies. So Matt McCallum not really fighting for the pro standings at the moment, but Mick Hill qualifying up there in 2nd is going to be good for him. He's on 313 points, 307 for Glenn Mead, and Jeremy Crow is in 3rd place on 278. So another critical round for Bruce the Shark, our favourite Shark, and then Mick Hill as well. This is absolutely critical. It's going to be a good round, and it is time now to go out on track and get this race going for Group A. So, as we said before, Matt Donetti will lead us away. The MR cars and the Lamborghinis looking especially strong today. Lewis Atkinson Audi R8 lines up in 2nd place. Will want to jump into that slipstream as soon as possible. Does so nicely as we get the green flag. And we go racing here for the penultimate round of the GT3 Championship at MotorMotion E-Series. One more round to come after this, and into turn 1 we go for the first time. A little bit of a look up the inside from Nick Pfaff in the background. Matt McCallum had a good strong start, keeps that position away from Mick Hill in the early parts of this race. Turn 3, it's the tire killer, it's the long right-hander. Got to keep the power down all the way through this as much as possible to maintain speed, to maintain grip, and then barrel into turn 4. Beautiful part of the track. This is where we talked about it getting very, very tricky. This is where overtakes suddenly start to become possible. Lewis Atkinson actually starting on the medium tire, and we've got a bit of a move down Wood. has had a bit of a look on him by Gopi Mahidajit, who's looking all sorts of out of shape through the turn 5 complex, and Nick Pfaff has made an early move on the Mercedes driver, puts his Porsche for Astor Racing up into P4 in this race. Now Dan Wood is the next one in his target sights as we head towards turn 9. Such a tricky corner. Nick talked about this earlier on. Don't run wide. You're going to get yourself a penalty, and a penalty this early on in the race is going to cost you a lot. Mahindajit now under a lot of pressure behind from McCallum, and he's actually going to go side by side with Nick Pfaff into the hard braking zone, and that's a beautiful move up the inside line for Mahindajit. Great stuff to retake the 4th place position. Nick Pfaff will now fall back towards our leading pro driver, Matt McCallum, well, formerly leading driver, because I think Mick Hill has managed to get side by side. He has. He's got the inside line as we run through turn 13. No chicane on this layout, and that is Mick Hill leading the pro standings and now leading the pro category in round 9. Very nice start by all these drivers and some great moves early on.
Yeah, great start there. Actually, a great start by Mick Hill. He's about to make another position on Nick Pfaff. And we actually saw a nice little battle pack between Nick Pfaff and Gopi Mahidajit. Nick actually sent the Porsche down the inside pretty hard at turn 5. He was getting compromised by a block pass from Dan Woods. So that actually opened the opportunity for Nick Pfaff to come through. And they have a bit of a heated rivalry since Interlagos after that last lap incident that those two had on the final lap in the American leg. But now they're here in the sunny sides of Catalunya, and they're still battling pretty hard. But Nick Pfaff has lost 2 positions in that. Whilst we have Dan Wood and Gopi Mahindajit fighting each other, they're actually letting the drivers go ahead, as Dan Wood has actually gone very deep down to turn 5 at the Carlos Sainz fan base down there at turn 5. They're always very excited to see the Spanish drivers in the real world of Formula 1 racing or MotoGP racing, whether it is Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Marc Marquez, all the Spaniards that come through, and even Jorge Martin, who is now the 2024 MotoGP champion. There's a lot of fan bases around at Catalunya, where the finale was actually held for the MotoGP championship. But Gopi Mahindajit is looking to try and go for a move on Dan Wood, but they're compromising each other because they're letting the MR drivers get ahead, and they're not even in screenshot there between Dan Wood down onwards. They are not even there. You can see on the mini map they're about to approach turn 13 now. These guys have just exited turn 12, and they've just lost so much time to the front 2 runners in Matt Donetti and Lewis Atkinson, P1, P2, the Hurricane versus the Audi R8. It's going to be a nice battle between those 2 MR cars, but it's just the FRs in the Mercedes and the BMW that will look to make those inroads as soon as they can.
That's exactly right, and the mix of compounds out there at the moment, racing mediums for Lewis Atkinson, racing hards for Matt Donetti, so even more impressive that he's been able to hold off Lewis so far. I think Lewis is going to try and extend those mediums as long as he can, but he is losing pace in this situation, and as he said before, Nick, Dan Wood and Gopi Mahindajit fighting it out, really starting to exacerbate the gap between them and these top spots. Not so critical for Dan Wood at this moment because he's not really in it for points at the moment. Does want to get some points for Gridline Racing to see if he can elevate them up in the team standings towards that P2 spot. And then Mick Hill, of course, great spot for him. He needs to win this pro category race to really start to secure that position. Let's go down to our pit lane reporter, seeing a mix of compounds out there. Ando, what can you tell us?
Yeah, there is a very good mix again throughout the field. And yeah, those first few laps were very clean, very good door-to-door racing, wasn't it, guys? The medium runners and the hard runners just sorting themselves out. And I can tell you one particular Porsche has already pitted off the hards, and he's committed himself to a 2-stop. So Nick Pfaff maybe didn't get the memo on how long the pit stop here is at Catalunya, but he's going to have a go at the 2-stop, and he's going to be running mediums for the rest of this race. But yeah, up the front there, we've got someone just kicking goals. Matt Donetti is holding on to the lead of the race on hard tyres, so he's really, really doing well.
We saw this very similar back in Austria in the last round, where it was Donetti and Lewis Atkinson. Atkinson was on the racing softs and Matt Donetti was on the mediums. Now it's kind of the same thing, but a compound higher between those two. Lewis Atkinson is actually not able to get past Matt Donetti in the Lamborghini Hurricane, and as you said, he's doing a really good job there. But a much better exit out of turn 1, turn 2. You can get the power down so much sooner, and especially here at turn 3, if he looks to line himself up to try and go for an inside line, Matt Donetti defends the inside. Lewis running onto the curves. Well, if Will he drop the car back into the inside line at Repsol at turn 4? He doesn't. He's just going to let the car just find its groove, find its balance, because these two are actually pulling away from the third place man in Dan Wood. And actually Mick Hill in Disposable Hero has actually made a move on Gopi Mahinjan down at turn 1 as well. So that's the BMWs 3 and 4. Gopi struggling a little bit in these early stages as he looked to be one of the challengers in the opening laps, George.
Yeah, that's right. And Gopi is on the hard tyres at the moment, and he's picked up a penalty for his troubles. So has found the car across the white line, and the stewards have picked up on that. The steward penalty has been applied. He'll serve that in a few moments' time. Runs very deep, and the exit at turn 9 as well. Doesn't pick up an extra penalty, luckily for him. We know that the Mercedes is an absolute tyre killer. Combine that with the heat at Catalunya. Oh, a little bit of a look from Matt McCullum. And McCullum does actually make the move happen. Will he keep it? Will it stick? Does not stick at the moment, because Gopi Mahinjan has found the power and put it down onto the tarmac and gotten that Mercedes back up ahead. Doesn't want to be sitting behind a Lamborghini, but that penalty has cost him massively, and it's also cost him that slipstream to Mick Hill, which is a real disaster for him. So he's going to have to adjust his race strategy as it is right now. But no doubt, seeing them on the hard tyres, no surprise there, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see the Mercedes is actually struggling a little bit when it comes to straight line speed. So McCallum wants to try and get right back underneath that rear wing and try and stick with Gopi, because even though he's a pro driver compared to Gopi Mahinjan, who is the elite driver, third place in the championship, he wants to try and stick with a well-known name in the Oceania GT7 community and try and see if they can close up towards Mick Hill, who is the leader of pro class at the moment, as he's got Nathan Wakefield right behind and Dean van der Zandt running in 8th place. We've had a bit of an up and down season. We've always talked about Dean van der Zandt quite a little amount compared to the rest of the drivers, but looks like he's putting in a strong performance there. 3rd in class, 8th overall, obviously with Nick Pfaff making his first pit stop. As Ando said, he's looking to do a 2-stopper, but if he can keep this pace, and he looks like he's actually feeding information from Hooncorp and Lewis Atkinson, they might be on a good strategy here to try and see if he can hold on to the podium.
That's right. And yeah, in the 2023 season, we didn't do anything but talk about Dean van der Zandt. So with his upgrade into these higher categories, he has been lacking a little bit of pace this season. Maybe it's just the not super familiar with how the R8 handles, maybe not his favorite car. But nonetheless, I mean, up in P8, he's on certainly for one of his best results this season. Also want to note that Captain Nathan Wakefield, is up a number of positions into that P7 slot. So he's doing quite well with his Mercedes right now. Not too bad for the number 83. Also on the hard tyres to start off with. Very sensible thing. Let's go through the rest of our grid. Dean van der Zandt, we've just talked about him for a bit for Hooncorp Esports in P8 on the racing mediums. Then it's Jeremy Crow, who's unfortunately picked up a 0.5 second penalty on the racing hards in P9, 3rd overall, I believe, in the pro category right now, or 4th maybe. He's actually got Campbell Knowles making a move up the inside line for Hassel 1. Doesn't make it stick though in the number 38. Then it's Drew Griffin in P11 for Astor Racing. Not on the same strategy as his teammate Nick Pfaff, as Jeremy Crow does. Big move, actually big move, and a big accident as well. Jeremy Crow has gone round, and I think that's contact between him and Campbell Knowles, because they were going essentially side by side into turn 1, Nick.
Oh, that's such an unfortunate end for Jeremy Crow. That's and 2 races in a row,
well. That's right, and Gopi Mahinjan as well has fallen to 9th place. Well, we're going to get our pit lane reporter onto this one. What have you seen around there?
Yeah, that was a battle for 5th position, and McCallum had his elbows out there, made a bit of a dive into the apex of turn 4, ran deep, and unfortunately ran Gopi off the track. So that one will possibly be in front of the stewards after the race.
Interesting, and he is on the racing medium tyre, so he obviously has that ability to brake a little bit later compared to Gopi's racing hard tyres. But again, just a little bit of misjudgment as called by Ando Scott. But very unlucky for Jeremy Crow there, George. That's twice in a row for the man that's sitting 3rd place in the Pro Championship. He needs to try and get these positions. He needs to try and keep that consistency, because he's just losing points. He lost points at Austria, and now he's potentially going to be losing points here in Catalunya.
Well, I think we've actually had an even bigger disaster for him, because I do believe that we have just lost Jeremy Crow from the lobby. So the car has been retired, and he is out of this round. Big damage on the rear of that car. It was obviously terminal enough that the team just thought, no, we can't continue with this. I do also want to note that Glenn Mead is the one with front splitter damage, so I do wonder either Glenn Mead's been picked up as a victim of the situation, or maybe the contact was actually involving Glenn Mead and Jeremy Crow, which is a disaster. We've had yet another flag, and that's a yellow flag for Gopi Mahindra, 2 in the space of 1 lap. What is going on?
Wow, that's twice in the same corner there for Gopi Mahindra. So that's 2 times that he's gone round at turns 1 and 2 on the racing hards. He's down in 11th place, considering Nick Pfaff has made a pit stop. He's down 11th, potentially at the last place of the runners that are yet to make their pit stops. This is a horrible round for Gopi Mahindra. He's not having a great time here in that Mercedes. The Mercedes really struggling on the tyres, on the tyre warm-up, and also the tyre when the tyres do degrade. They degrade so fast. I don't think Gopi has done much preparation when it comes to this round, because he's really struggling with the Mercedes, as well as some of the other Mercedes drivers. We have Captain Wakefield and Captain Snooze in our favourite Nathan Snooze. One of our funny nicknames for our favourite man in Nathan Wakefield, as well as Jeremy Crow. As we've seen Jeremy Crow retire. The other Diffusion Race Engineering is nowhere to be seen. So we have 2 Mercedes drivers down the back end of the grid, and there just doesn't seem to be the right car for the track, because the BMWs in the hands of Mick Hill and Dan Wood, 3rd and 4th place out of the FR cars, looks to be the strongest out of those 2.
Yeah, and we've got to remember that the points differential here, with Gopi Mahindra nearly down in, well, 2nd to last place at the moment, and with a Mercedes that is slightly hurting in a number of places, the difference between him and his championship rival, Matt Donetti, is absolutely massive. 1 point separates them in the standings, and if they finish the way they are right now, that's going to be a massive swing towards Matt Donetti, who'll also make a little bit of progress on Lewis Atkinson in this round. So Matt Donetti is really in the box seat right now for this. Andrew Scott, we saw the rear end of that Mercedes jumping out all over the place. Doesn't seem to really want to be going in a straight line under braking or under acceleration. Can you tell us any more?
Yeah, it looks like the setup of that car was just wrong for Mahindra. He's just getting very, very taily in a couple of critical corners. So I saw there at the start of the race that Mick Hill was just making huge gains on him through some of the corners, when he's just developing this big slide in that Mercedes, which is washing off too much speed.
Oh, there's a nearly move there at turn 9 through Kampsa between Dean Vandersen and Nathan Wakefield. I thought it was going to go for it, Dean Vandersen. He's got nothing to lose in this championship. I thought he was going to give it a good old go in the Lamborghini, in the Audi R8, but it looks like Captain Wakefield has run a bit wide down at turn 10. He's actually offering Dean Vandersen the opportunity to try and look left and right to try and overtake that Mercedes, but he's doing a good job just to defend his position. At the moment is Nathan Wakefield in the elite category. He's sitting in 4th place overall behind Dan Wood, who's in P3 in class. Matt McCallum running P2 and Mick Hill running P1 in the pro category, with Dean Vandersen still holding on to 3rd. But running some good laps there is Dean Vandersen. He's on the racing medium tyres as well, compared to Nathan Wakefield in P6. But I did report earlier, before the race started, that we did see Luke Stone coming out of his pit box, but then again, they just had to retire the car. They actually didn't make to the end of the pit lane. There was just too much terminal damage on the Lightning Motorsports Audi R8, and they just wheeled it back in, and they just had to call it a day. So that's 2 retirements from the pro class, George, and yeah, they're quite strong contenders in this championship.
Yeah, that's right. It's not been a season to really remember for Lightning Motorsport. They've had some really good results throughout the season, but just not enough consistency throughout to really maintain a good position within the team's standings. And that's a real shame for Troy Britnell and the team, because they have put in a lot of hard work with that Audi R8. And the R8 does seem to be coming alive here today at Catalunya, so it would have been a track that they certainly would have wanted to be operating at, especially when they're going to now see the Hooncorp Esports cars doing quite well, especially the likes of Dean van der Zaan right on the back of Nathan Wakefield still. And you can just see with the body language of the cars, the Mercedes just looking really unstable when you compare it to the MR nature of the R8.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we look back towards the front runners in Matt Donetti and Lewis Atkinson, we can see Lewis has actually lost ground a bit to Matt Donetti. So whilst these guys were tooth and nail with each other, basically bumper to bumper from lap 1 to lap 8, on this lap previously, he's starting to lose a bit of time to Matt Donetti. So obviously the crossover point between the mediums and the hards has come through, and Donetti's about to start to stretch his legs a little bit in that Lamborghini Hurricane with a 1 minute 42.678 on Lewis Atkinson. So we look to Matt Donetti's lap time of 42.5. So he's throwing the consistency. And I'll tell you what, George, that consistency from 2 to 9, wow, that is actually very impressive. Lap 2, 42.6, 42.7, 42.6, 42.6, 42.1. 42-1, 42-3, 42-5. Where has this come from Matt Donetti? He's fuming after what could have been his first victory last time out at Austria, but unfortunately the fuel numbers was too much for that Lamborghini Hurricane. Overfueled the car, lost the victory to Lewis Atkinson, and he's running some brilliant numbers here in that Lamborghini Hurricane with the fastest lap of 41.8. He's not far off that lap time set by Nick Pfaff.
Yeah, that's right. He is very close. And it is one of those things, drivers tend to react to pressure situations, whether it's the championship points or the pressure of a very important victory at a next race, or the potential even of a victory. And for Matt Donetti, he just seems to operate very well for the most part under pressure. He's actually had a number of results this season in the GT3 Championship, and also if we think back to TCR as well, where he's come so close, but the operation under pressure has been a little bit of an issue for him in the past. And now this is looking like he's really sort of found his legs and found a way to sort of move on past that and operate, because the only lap that he's done that wasn't a 42 was the one where he started the race with a 45.997 and sitting 0.3 of a second off the fastest lap on the hard tires. Really shows us, Nick, I think, that the hard tires not only are optimal for this track, but they're also putting Matt Donetti in a massively good position. Lewis Atkinson spent all that time, and there we go indeed, another 42.2. Excellent. The consistency is absolutely amazing from Donetti, but it also shows that Lewis Atkinson will be at a disadvantage. At the end of this race, he'll be running on those hard tires, and if Donetti can extend enough, he'll have more grip towards the end of this race.
Yeah, we know what Matt Donetti is like when you give him a softer compound of tyres. He will start throwing fastest lap after fastest lap. We saw that at Interlagos, where he threw on the soft tyres at the end of the race and started throwing in and punching in really fast laps and insane laps that towards the end of the race. What was an unfortunate race for him, he just wanted to have a little bit of bragging rights and just get those fastest laps. But he's been one of the lead runners when it comes to fastest laps. Him and Gopi have been setting that 1 lap pace throughout the race. As Lewis ran wide at turn 5, it might incur a half-second penalty there if the GT gods give him the favours of not giving him that penalty, which he's actually got away with. So very thankful for him running a little bit wide there. You can run to a point, but then as we said with the FIA stewards here at MotorMotion, and the MotorMotion stewards looking at that, they're just looking at all the track limits that these drivers are running. So we haven't seen too many penalties amongst our drivers that look to be relatively clean. But I'll tell you what's not clean, Ando, is those racing medium tyres on Lewis Atkinson's Audi R8. How long do you think you can predict until we see that Audi R8, as he actually has a moment down at turn 12 and loses so much more time to Matt Donetti?
Yeah, his left rear is looking a bit sorry at the moment, and he's getting a bit taily now out of particularly the right-hand corners. So he will start dropping time now, I think, but he's going to stick to the one stopper, I think. So he's going to have to get it to about that lap 15 mark. So he's got another 3 or 4 laps to do on these mediums. I think he can do it. It's just a matter of how much time is he going to lose to the leader, because I can tell you Matt Donetti is setting some blistering times on the hards. They're still looking fine wear-wise, so he's just going to keep getting faster. And just to let you know, guys, Nick Pfaff, who's having a crack at the two-stop, he's not really making any inroads. He's only doing basically similar lap times to Donetti in the lead. So he's now cost himself a whole extra pit stop. And I think the best he can hope for is maybe a top 7 or 8 finish today.
Wow, that's big news for Nick Pfaff, and the two-stop strategy not going to be optimal here today. We know the Porsche can be pretty brutal on its tyres, but with the hard tyre as an optional or mandatory compound, you could potentially even do 2 stops, half it on the hard tyres if you had the pace to do so. So interesting to see Astor Racing choosing that strategy today and opting for a potential 2-stop strategy. We shall see how that plays out long term. Let's go through the grid once again, just get an idea of where everyone's at with fuel and who might be barreling, I should say, towards a potential advantage in the pit stop length. Again, we always say fuel is rather cheap with the way that we have things set up, but it does make a difference. Matt Donetti has less fuel than Lewis, and Lewis has actually been saving quite a lot of fuel, still has a couple of laps to make it through, but that gap continues to get larger and larger and larger each lap we go through. Still very consistent. So we did mention the consistency for Donetti. Well, there's consistency here for Lewis as well. He's also been running in the 42s this entire time as well, so good stuff there. As has, up until the last lap, as has Mick Hill, a 43.084, very unfortunate for him. He's on about the same fuel as Matt Donetti, pushing that BMW a little bit harder than Lewis is pushing that R8. Then very, very lower fuel amount here for Dan Woodnick. So he's obviously just trying to keep the pace up at the moment on those racing hard tires, but the consistency in lap is just not there.
No, unfortunately for Dan Wood, it's just been an up and down since lap 1. So as he was actually having that battle with Gopi Mahenjan and Nick Pfaff, it just doesn't really look like he's in a rhythm at the moment. The lap time's fluctuating between 42s, 43s, but he's now back into the 42s.9 on the racing hards, where we saw with Matt Donetti setting 42.2s on his racing hard tires. So he looks like he's just not able to find that rhythm, and he's actually losing a bit of time to Matt McCallum right behind in P5. So the CP cars in the Lamborghini Huracan doing a really, really good job, with Matt McCallum setting some really nice laps there himself, 42.4 as his personal best, 42.4 on that previous lap as well. So he's finding some consistency, but I'm very impressed with Mick Hill. Is actually running away. He's actually pulling away from Dan Wood, and Dan Wood being the elite class and Mick Hill in the pro, he's actually got some serious pace over his fellow BMW driver, and he looks to be under that pressure from Matt McCallum, who's running P2, a really solid P2, and a nice drive from Matt McCallum in this opening stint of the race.
Yeah, and Mick Hill and his team will be very glad to see that it's not one of his driver standings competitors. Right behind him this time round, Glenn Mead is sitting a fair ways off down past the P8 point, so he is really not in earshot at the moment of Mick Hill, and Mick Hill is looking to make a really good extension, especially given that they've got Matt McCallum in there. He'll be taking away points from Glenn Mead and Gridline Racing, so that's a big, big win for Mick Hill should he bring it home in the current position. And yeah, very low fuel numbers though for Matt McCallum. We know he's been pushing the car, trying to keep the lap times up, but you can see by the timing tower on the right-hand side, those lap times have started to degrade as the grip does start to disappear. And I have to admit, I really should, for everyone who is on the controller here today at Catalunya, do not for those of you who haven't tried this on controller, do not underestimate how difficult it is to maintain the tires for more than 3 laps. Whatever the compound is with a controller, Nick, you can speak to that.
I can agree to that.
Yeah, it takes a lot of control on the controller. I've tried playing on controller, I just do not have the dexterity.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all about consistency, as Ando mentioned very nicely before the race commenced here at MotorMotion E-Series in round 9 of the Player 1 SimGear GT3 Championship. It's all about that consistency. Matt Donetti's been showing consistency. Mick Hill has been showing that consistency. Even Lewis on worn medium tyres has been showing some very strong consistency, but he's actually now losing a bit of time to Mick Hill. As on this last lap, he's actually lost time to the Hassel 1 Motorsports car number 3. But going to you, Ando, down in the pit lane, we can see a lot of drivers. They're quite, you would say on the minimap, they look relatively close to each other. So I feel like everyone's in their own rhythm. They're running their own rates. There doesn't really seem to be many major moves up and down the field. It's all just going to come down to that pit stop. And I think as we're about to cross the halfway mark, nearly 25 minutes into this race, you're probably going to see quite a busy lane in the next couple of laps.
Yeah, I think the pit stops will start happening soon. And yeah, they're pretty much sorted themselves out into single file racing. So it's not over yet though, guys, because it's going to come down to the pit stops and how much fuel they decide to take. And there could be an undercut or two on here as well. So watch out for those early pitters to short fuel and try and get out and leapfrog at least the car in front.
Looks like you've got a couple there in your way. Gopi Mahenjan and Campbell Knowles are the first men to come into the pit lane. So we called it there just before the 25-minute mark. So they're going to go at least a little bit more fuel, change a compound of tyres. But these guys are going to go from racing hard to racing mediums, as they see with Lewis Atkinson, as well as a couple of other drivers up and down the field. Their tyres start to run out quite a fair bit. Campbell Knowles goes from mediums to racing hards to conclude this race, while we see Gopi go from racing hards to racing mediums. I'm not so sure if this is the right strategy here, George, because these drivers are going half race distance on a softer compound. Well, especially with Gopi, he's going on a softer compound halfway into this race. Would you want to run the softer compound of the softer compound of tires available here at MotorMotion towards the end? Would you say around about 30, 33, 35 minutes into this race?
That's a tricky question. I mean, I think actually we've seen Gopi Mahedija go back onto the hard tyres, unless something's not updating on our data screens, but he's actually opting for a second run on those hard tyres and must have realised that...
Yeah, he has.
Yeah, the Mercedes must just absolutely kill its medium tyres for a number of reasons. It's just one of those cars that burns it up. I think personally I would be doing what Gopi's doing. I don't trust myself on worn medium tyres at a track like this unless I was able to extend a hard stint to, you know, something like 30 minutes, which might be possible, but I think you'd start losing a lot of time at that point.
It looks like exactly what Lewis is actually doing. So even though Lewis is sitting in P2, still running a very nice race there in P2 and actually keeping ahead of Mick Hill in Disposable Hero, I think he's going to try and just wait for that left rear just to literally kick out on him. And as he goes through turn 5, you can see just the understeer that he gets through turn 5, not able to get the car hooked around the corner. It looks like his pit window's coming up very shortly because Mick Hill is closing quite a fair bit, and Lewis is actually losing much more time to Matt Donetti, who's actually gone into the 43s now on that last lap, 43.3, and even on lap 13. So that 42 consistency is done for Lewis Atkinson. He's now losing time hand over fist. Can he go one more lap, or will he come in this lap? We'll find out in due time.
Well, we will. I think he's got to come in this lap, to be honest with you. Those rear tyres, the rear lefts, I should say, absolutely destroyed. I think this might be the wrong strategy. I don't think running long on a medium tyre has really paid off. I mean, he's still got good lap times relative to most of the field. Still running in the 43s, but that last lap of 43.3, and surely
he's
that's a pit entry. He is indeed in the pit. So, meanwhile, Matt Donetti out front, those racing hard, still looking good, and he's getting closer and closer to that 30-minute cutoff. And another 42, so he's not lost any pace, and he's halfway through his tyre life. You know?
My goodness. And he's got to go potentially 2 more laps until the end of this stint. He's seen now Lewis come into the pit lane. I want to throw the question down to Ando. What would you prefer? Would you prefer fresh hard tyres or worn hard tyres when it comes to an undercut versus the overcut? Which one is the best?
I think I mean, Lewis isn't going to make this work at all if he goes back onto the hards. So well, he's going to have to take the hards. He has to go onto the hards. So, you know, Donetti here is just checking out, I think, because his hards are looking great. They're just getting faster. And the question for me now is when he pits, what tyre will he choose to go onto? Because he might go back onto the hards and just absolutely gun it from there.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, he's got the pace on the hard tyres right now.
Well, if he gets another lap or two in, though, he's only going to have to do 12 or so on the mediums, and that's easily doable as well. So he could dip well into the 41s in the back half of this race now, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And even looking now at Dean van der Sande, you can actually see his tyre wear. I want to actually throw this. This is actually interesting, George. Dean's tyre wear compared to Lewis's is so much more better. And the fuel is actually saved us a little bit more than Lewis Atkinson. So he's done a really good job, Dean van der Sande, in that Audi R8. So it looks like he could go for at least another lap or two, as we see Matt Donetti actually come into the pit lane, not taking that risk and not willing to take the risk of 2-lap overcut compared to Lewis Atkinson's undercut. So you're going to wait for him to come through the pit lane. Mick Hill plunders through, goes on for another lap. Matt McCallum into the pit lane. So the CP boys are going to be working hard on their Lamborghini Hurricanes. Dean van der Sande on 22% comes into the pit lane, so getting off those mediums. It's going to be quite close here, George and Ando. The pit lane is Bruin between the CP boys and their Hooncourt boys.
If only Jeff Bruin was around for us to make a joke. Nonetheless, Mick Hill now leading the race. His fastest lap of 42.317, but he'll be coming in reasonably soon. He's done the best so far, I think, to extend the life on the mediums. And yeah, very interesting point there that you pointed out around Dean van der Sande. He did very, very well through this, with the fuel especially. And it just makes me think what could have been. Had he started on the hard tyres and went to 30 minutes with that amount of fuel, could have been quite the overcut.
Yeah, absolutely. And Donetti's actually come out ahead again, yes, yet again, of Lewis Atkinson, but they're still quite close to each other. So you can see on the mini-map there, you could see why Donetti didn't want to go for a two-lap overcut on Lewis Atkinson, because he's there. Even though he's on the hard tyres and Matt Donetti's on those mediums, he can now stretch his legs, throw the car into the 41s, and then just check out of here with just under 20 minutes of racing left here at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. As we've got Mick Hill, who's yet to make his pit stop, Lewis Atkinson, Dan Wood, and Dean van der Zaan, who's actually come out of the pit lane, and he's actually jumped Matt McCallum. So this is something I did not see here. Dean van der Zaan has actually jumped Matt McCallum here, and he's on the hard tyres. Matt McCallum also on the hard tyres. This is going to be quite an impressive stint here for the Hooncourt boys, if they can keep Dean van der Zaan here, because this is a fantastic race here. And as we said, we haven't mentioned his name too much in the 2024 campaign, but I think the word is shouting here in Barcelona that Dean van der Zaan is the man on the charge, and he is looking to seal his first podium in 2024.
Great stuff. Dean van der Zaan on a charge, as he said, did put a lot less fuel in the car. Misses an apex by quite some distance on that one. That's going to bring Matt McCallum ever so slightly closer to the rear wing of that Hooncourt P-Sports R8. Less fuel in the car for Dean van der Zaan, and that is partially why he's been able to overcut. But obviously, Matt McCallum's not had the greatest of, well, actually, the last lap before his penultimate lap before his stint ended, 43.6, so he definitely lost some time on that one. And yeah, Dean van der Zaan on a charge late in the season, really starting to get familiar with the R8. We're a little bit late for anything to really happen, of course, because he's only on 126 points in the standings, so really out of earshot when it comes to that battle, but might be able to find his way up above Drew Griffin potentially in this season. Racing hards at the end, I still think this is the wrong way round, but at least he's going to have no worries. There's no risk being on the hard tyres at the end. You can get your head down, you can do fast laps, and you can take a few risks, and the car is not going to throw a fit.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what the lap times are like between Dean van der Zaan and Matt McCallum as we keep an eye on that battle pack pretty shortly. But another man that's actually come through here is Drew Griffin in the Astor Racing Porsche. He's come into the pit lane on lap 13 to now jump on a racing medium tyre, but not so sure he's going to get to the end of the race because the fuel is quite low. So I wonder if he just definitely may have short filled that car, thrown on some medium tyres and say, you know what, let's have a little bit of fun in the Astor Porsche. Let's try and rag this car as much as we can. 42.9 as his personal best fastest lap, but he definitely doesn't look like he's going to be throwing any contentions for the podium position, unfortunately.
Do we think that he's he's just picked up a penalty there, ran wide through turn 9 exit, not ideal, 0.5 second penalty, which he will serve on the 20th lap of this race. Matt McCallum's had a bit of an issue through the hard braking zone, being brought slowly back into this battle between the two, but bear in mind you got Nathan Wakefield there as well. Set for a great three-way battle between these three drivers. I get the feeling that Drew Griffin has maybe actually been on the two-stopper from the start, but just had a longer first stint than Nick Pfaff. And Nick Pfaff is going to have a relatively long stint towards the end. He might be coming to the pits in short order. And that penalty is going to really affect this battle, not what you want to be looking at, especially if you're in the middle of two cars, one which you can overtake and one which is looking to overtake you, especially when it's Captain Wakefield, Nathan Wakefield, who is looking pretty quick right now on the racing medium tyres, got plenty of fuel to go to the end, and I think he's got the strategy the right way around. I'm still struggling to understand why we've seen people run long on the mediums today. Andrew Scott, can you give us any illumination why that might be?
Well, he might be quick, but he's not as quick as Matt Doherty, who's just laid down a 41.4, but that's been surpassed by Dan Wood now with a 41.2. Yeah, there's a reason why they're going long on the medium, because they're just trying to make that one stop work, and the medium is quicker than the hard tyre.
Sorry to cut you off there, and looks like Drew Griffin looks like he was about to make a move down at turn 8, going into the tight chicane there. That was it's a little bit scary to make a move there, but he almost made that come true. Unfortunately, no contact made between the Black Rose Racing and the Astor Racing. But continue on, and sorry about that.
That's all right, mate. Yeah, the medium is quicker than the hard tyre by upwards of a second, but it does drop off. So I think you might be right there, George. The only one that's got it right today is Matt Doherty in the lead, who went long on the hard. and now he's got a short stint to do on the mediums to finish off the race. So he doesn't have to worry about those mediums going off on him.
Yeah, I think that's the way that it's been played correctly, and yeah, CP Motorsports have got that absolutely spot on in my and Andrew's, and I think Mick's as well opinion. In this case, the racing hard tyres are the ones that you take longer. They're going to degrade less. There's less risk involved. You're going to step out the car less. That means less wheel spin, less fuel burn. It just works out in his favor, and now he's got a shorter 20-minute stint. Bear in mind, these medium runners who ran long on the mediums ran on the mediums for 30 minutes. So he's only got 20 minutes to do on the racing mediums. He can drive faster, or in the opposite direction, he could drive safer, preserve the tyre life. He's still got plenty of gap back to Lewis Atkinson, who's on the hard tyre. Yes, Lewis will be very consistent on that pace, but at the end of the day, save the mediums up a little bit, and you'll be able to push when you need to. So manage the gap, I think, is the plan. The racing medium's looking healthy at the moment, with 14 minutes now remaining in this race. That is just around 10 laps remaining, and Matt Donetti has got a sizable margin between him and Lewis, so he can really manage the tyres, really maintain things, and that is going to really set him up for the victory today, and it'll be a very, very, very good strategy execution here today by CP Motorsports, and Matt Donetti, my hat's going to be taken off, I believe, at the end of this race, because when you see a strategy executed well, you just have to respect it.
Absolutely, and I think a nice little battle pack we are seeing here could be a potential battle for P2 with Lewis Atkinson, Mick Hill, and the man that's running in P4, Dan Wood. You have to remember, he is on the racing medium tyres, and a fastest lap there of 41.248. He's the man that's going to be cooking over the next 14 minutes, or literally 13 minutes of racing as we clock over right now to start lap 22 with less than 13 minutes of running. Watch him cook in that BMW M6 and close up to Mick Hill, because he'll be the man on the charge there, but he's actually lost a little bit of time there on that previous lap compared to his fastest lap. 1.5 second difference, so mistake
got a penalty
on that previous lap there, lost time to himself and Mick Hill, unfortunately, so he needs to try and get himself back up into the rhythm and get underneath that rear wing as he drifts through Repsol at turn 4. As he's putting on a show there for the Spanish fans. They love a little bit of drifting around this track here. But Dan Wood, it looks like they're going to be cooking, and going to try and pass his fellow BMW driver in Mick Hill.
Indeed, yeah. So we'll stay on board for a full lap. As Ando just pointed out beforehand, Dan Wood did serve a penalty, so that has compromised that previous lap. Won't be on that 41 pace. Might be this lap, we shall see. Through we go, through turn 9 and towards a easterly direction now in Catalunya, heading towards La Caixa. In turn 10, hard braking zone, get it slowed down, got to ride slightly across that apex to really open up the exit. Don't want to be using that rumble strip towards the exit or the side of turn 10. Now to turn 11 and 12. Careful of that inner rumble strip, it will cause the car to oversteer. You do want to be very careful on the throttle. A little bit of a lift off and a good corner cut there by Dan Wood. This is an excellent finish to the lap. Another little downshift, lift off the power, get the car rotating into that apex and back on the power as we head down the straight. And look at the amount of time he's just taken out of Mick Hill. Andrew Scott, let's go down to you for a little bit of analysis on this, because the lap is fantastic. That's some great progress by Dan Wood. He's a controller player, and he's doing very well right now.
Yeah, he's laying down some serious lap times. He's closing up on Mick Hill now. Mick Hill's going to have to defend for all he's worth. But this is an interesting little battle, because it's very important teams championship points here on offer. So Dan Wood's going to be very, very motivated indeed to get past Mick Hill. He's going to have to clear him, because Mick Hill's on the hards. And then he might be able to make his way up towards Lewis for a P2.
Yep, that's critical.
But he's got some tyre wear to worry about. His mediums are copying shellacking. His front left in particular.
They are indeed. And a quick little bit of information, just a subsequent that right at the back of the Hassel 1 car. Now, bear in mind, Hassel 1 have taken the team's championship. They do not need these points. Mick Hill does need the points, but only really from pro category. He's already got a good bit of distance on Dean van der Zandt, his nearest challenger here. This is amazing racing. Oh, here we go. Dan Wood on the inside. I'm going to give the points update a little bit after this, because Dan Wood is centered on the inside into turn 10.
He's the W beautifully.
It's actually done really well. There's a little bit of argy-bargy between the two there on that. I don't think Mick Hill will be particularly happy.
He left the car width, I think. So that was fair. a real send-it moment, wasn't it? Like he threw the dummy beautifully, and Mick Hill made the mistake of not covering the inside into the hairpin. Geez, I hate it when guys do that, guys. They should defend the inside, especially when you got someone like Woodsy coming up. You just lift your skirt like that, and Woodsy's going to take it every time.
Absolutely, and you can just see that he's now pulled away at least 3-4 tenths now on Mick Hill on that last lap. So that move there, I was watching throughout that whole race as you two were commentating, just he almost threw the car into turn 5, or an inside move on Mick Hill, almost threw it at the chicane there at 6 and 7 as he was actually literally riding the rear bumper of that Hasselblad BMW, and then finally drifts the car through turn 9, just massive oversteer on through Campso at turn 9, and then as you said, as you called it there, a nice dummy move into 10. Nice racing between the two BMWs, and now the charge is for Lewis Atkinson. The two teams, Hooncorp Esports, Gridline Racing, the battle for P2, George. Obviously, it looks like it could potentially be going to Hooncorp this time round because Glenn Mead and our favourite Shark and Big Bruce Shark is down in last place, unfortunately. But so far, Dan Wood doesn't mind about that. He doesn't care about that. He just wants to get one up on Lewis.
Yeah, exactly. This is so critical because Hooncorp Esports are on 875 points in the team standings. Gridline Racing are on 875 points. That is a difference of 0 points for those of you who can't do math, like myself. So they are really neck and neck right now in the team standing, and this is the battle for P2 in the standings for the teams. But as you said, Dean van der Zandt this will be his best result of the season, up in 5th place right now. This is looking really, really solid for Hooncorp Esports, and Dan Wood is just really trying to mitigate the damage that's going to be done in Group A. Bear in mind, of course, 2 more drivers for each teams to do their laps and potentially get some great points out of it in Group B as well, so it might swing the other way. We shall see. We do know that Gridline Racing very strong in Group B. I've certainly seen the best results from Hooncorp Esports up here in Group A this season thus far. But this is an absolutely critical battle. The question really is here, it's a bit of a back and forth battle for Dan Wood, not necessarily with Lewis Atkinson. It's going to be with his tyres. We've still got 7.5 minutes to go. That last lap was a 41.8, so he's really on the pace right now. Lewis ahead of him on the 43s, doesn't have pace in that Audi on the hard tyre. The overtake looks almost inevitable. When will that crossover happen? That's the real question, I think, here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, George, that Paella is cooking on Dan Wood's Gridline Racing BMW because he's almost done. He's almost made the charge back from P4 and he's right underneath that rear wing. As we saw on the previous lap, there was a huge gap between him and Lewis as he has a bit of a moment there on the exit of turn 8. And as he goes through the turn 9, you can just see he's absolutely throwing that BMW like no tomorrow. He's cooking in that BMW. It's hot underneath the cockpit. But I'll tell you what, that Paella is almost done, and he is ready to serve up towards his competitor.
Absolutely. Yes, guys, go ahead.
Donetti's done a 40.9.
He's done a 40.9. Okay, Matt Donetti. Well,
What's going on?
We thought he was. We've got a yellow flag out on track. Hold on 1 second. Where are we seeing this yellow flag? It was in Sector 3. Looks like that's resolved itself almost immediately, so no worries there. Yeah, a 40.905. We're going to come back to that in just a second because I want to call out Nick for the understatement of the season in the commentary box. A bit of a moment at turn 9. He nearly binned it into the wall, but I don't think he got a great view of it. I think both Ando and I got a slightly better view of it, and it was a bit more than a bit of a moment.
Very, very sideways moment.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
90 degrees. That was.
We all get our award
ridiculous.
somewhere. Yeah, we all get our award somewhere. I get it for the stupidest metaphor of the season, referring back to the last race where I think I talked about a hammer and a windmill, and now you get the award for understatement of the season, Nick, and that's the right time to get an award for this for sure. Yeah, let's talk about the 40.905. Andrew, your award is always Budweiser Balcony and the rave party you put on there. You just get an award for that straight up.
Yeah. Big Willow's my favourite. I like to race there and I like to drink there.
I love it. A 40.905. We are not going to be able to talk about this enough. That is a very, very quick lap, and we need to remember that number here in the commentary box of 1 minute 40.905. Let's compare to see if anyone else can get anywhere close to that. Matt Donetti is on a charge, and he's feeling very comfortable, and the tyres look so good for this part of the race. I mean, he's gone just under 15 minutes on those. There's only 5 minutes remaining. Those are healthy mediums, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can just see the even wear on the front and the rears. He's just checked out. He's just cruising this car home. You can see the gap. And literally there's no gap. He's literally covered the whole pitch straight here, George. And these guys have actually now gone through us. We actually now see Dan Wood has actually gone past Lewis Atkinson. He's up into P2 now. So dishes are served. He's up into P2, and he's flashed the lights there. He knows he's on the camera. That's brilliant, Dan Wood. He knows that he's getting screen time here. But Dan Wood, what a nice move there on Lewis Atkinson. Maybe our pit lane reporter Nando Scott will let us know where that move was made, potentially down on turn 10 between Dan Wood and Lewis Atkinson. But nice for him to make that comeback in his short stint here at MotorMotion E-Series. What could have been for the man in gridline racing? Obviously replaced yourself, Ando, in that 787, now 27 Elite gridline racing BMW M6 Sprint. But he's doing a really good job there, up into P2. Just not a very good first stint, George, here at Catalunya. Obviously, the racing hards really struggled to get those tyres up to temperature, and I think that's where the race was pretty much won and lost between all the drivers up and down the field.
Yeah, it was the real critical decision. When do you get on the hards? How long do you run on them? When do you get on the mediums? How long do you run on them? How much fuel saving can you do? I don't think that's had a massive impact today. Really, the tyre degradation has been the key thing. I mean, Lewis Atkinson down in P2, and I think if he had reversed his strategy, stayed on run long on the hard tyres behind Matt Donetti early on in this race, probably would have been the situation to be on. Instead, they did 30 minutes on the medium tyres, and those tyres were absolutely gone by the end. So the critical decisions being made by the teams and the strategists today, coming down to tyre choice and length of stint, and that's no surprise at a circuit like this. It is known as one of those circuits that just kills your tyres, which is why this is even more impressive by Dan Wood, given that he is on controller. Let's go quickly through the remainder of the grid. Lewis Atkinson, of course, in P3, then Mick Hill on the racing hard tyres, actually technically on better lap times than Lewis Atkinson right now, with more tyre life on those hards, so this could still be a P3 for Mick Hill, and Lewis Atkinson is really starting to struggle at the end of this race. Behind them in P5, Nick Pfaff is holding on to that P5 spot with second place in the pro category for Dean van der Zandt. This is a two-stop. Yeah, that's exactly right. Andrew, this has kind of come out of left field, hasn't it?
Yeah, he's got a bit of pressure behind him, but it looks like he's done really well on the two-stop. So he's made a liar out of me, and he's made that work in that Porsche, and he was setting some blistering lap times on fresh mediums. So yeah, that's what I didn't take into account. He was well into the 41s himself each time he came out on fresh mediums. So he's made that work, and if he can hold him off, this will be a good result for him.
I think there's one thing we've probably underestimated a little bit here, and that's clean air, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had that when he came into the pit lane at the end of lap 2 to get off those hard tyres to throw on medium tyres. So that clear air that he got worked an absolute treat. But he has trickled over to that 10% now, George. The fuel is on red. Potentially 2 more laps to the end of this race. It's about 5 litres per lap. So can he get this car to the end? We'll find out in due time. But another standout performance. Not just Nick Pfaff putting on a standout performance with the two-stop. I have to give it to Dean van der Zandt, running P2 in class, in the pro class, with Mick Hill leading this pro class race here at round 9. But Dean van der Zandt to get P2, obviously struggling throughout the whole season, but a P2 on a welcome return pace, that's really good. And he's actually keeping Nathan Wakefield behind him at bay, who is really struggling on those medium tyres. That front left is absolutely dead. He'll be lucky to see the checkered flag on the last lap. He'll be happy to see the checkered flag on the last lap, rather, as we see down in P8 in third in class is Matt McCallum in the Lamborghini Hurricane CP Motorsports 23. And then Glenn Mead, 4th place in class, while his rival Mick Hill leading the race. And then Gopi Mahindran. Oh, what could have been for Gopi Mahindran, gentlemen? What a race! What an event! What a change of events this has happened here at Catalunya, with Gopi running in 10th, Drew Griffin and Campbell Knowles 11th and 12th players. But it's so unfortunate for Gopi because he's lost points in this race.
Yeah, and we know, of course, how good a driver Gopi Mahindran is. I mean, he is just top class. Absolutely, every single week, and he's had some really good wins to his name as well, some great results throughout the season, and it's really a shame to see it all come unstuck at Catalunya. And almost no surprise, though, in some ways, this was going to be the toughest track, I think, of the season for the Mercedes. After we saw what happened to the tyres in round 1, we went, wow, these Mercedes, they really do chew up the tyres massively. And then to come to the real tyre killer here at Catalunya and see the Mercedes struggle is almost not a surprise. But I would have thought in the hands of Cooke he had a better chance than not to do a really good job today. Matt Donetti has come across the line and we've actually missed it. He's taken P1, and that is Group A Elite category, all sealed and done for Matt Donetti in this race, and that is a good amount of points for him. This has become a bit of a disaster for Lewis Atkinson. Dan Wood will take for Gridline Racing P2 in the Elite category. Then Lewis Atkinson, he really needed a second place finish, and I think the points tally is going to be rather closer than he would like it to be as they head into the last round. Mick Hill in P4, so some great racing around the grid. A few more across the line. Nick Pfaff, two-stopper, runs across the line in P5. Dean van der Zart, congratulations, second place in the Pro category. Nathan Wakefield in P7. Matt McCullum comes across the line in third for the Pro category. Then it is Glenn Mead still in the battle with Gopen Mahinajet, will finish 9th and 10th respectively. Across the line they go, and it is Drew Griffin. And then Campbell Knowles had a shocker, does want to forget about it. He'll move on. It's time for round 10 for them. So a race to forget for some, but for some others, that is a very good, enticing way to finish the penultimate round of the GT3 Championship. Matt Donetti is one of those. The CP Motorsports takes the first victory for himself, and I believe CP Motorsports' first victory as well. We can get a fact check on that one in short order, but Matt Donetti, congratulations. First win of the season, and as you said, Nick, that is the 7th unique winner we've had in Elite category.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible just to see this elite class have such a close battle pack and such a close championship that we are seeing as we go to the results. And as we look over the results now, Matt Donetti, Dan Wood, Lewis Atkinson. Yes, as we said, Matt Donetti's first victory in the Lamborghini Huracan in the 2024 GT3 Championship, sponsored by Player One Sim Gear. 7th victory in the elite class. Wow, I can't wrap my head around it that we've had 7 different drivers take a victory in this series. It's absolutely incredible to see how close the racing has become here in 2024. And then we go to the pro class. It is Mick Hill who does take victory in the pro class, and Dean Vanderson and Matt McCullum getting their first podiums in 2024, George. So it's great to see some new names up on that podium, with Hooncorp getting the double in the points over the grid line boys. He's actually got the upper hand, and so far in this championship running, or they're pretty much dead even between the two teams. I feel, but it looks like Hooncorp is going to get the upper hand on the points overall, thanks to Dean van der Zandt's 39 and Lewis's 30 points in the lead. Because unfortunately, Glenn Mead is down there in 4th place, 27 points, while Dan Wood picked up 36, I believe, from the last page.
It'll be pretty close still, won't it?
It'll be very close.
We've got
Good
game
lots
on
of racing.
Second place.
Absolutely, we've got lots of racing to come here, but as we go down the rest of the field, as I said, Matt McCullum gets his first podium, Glenn Mead, Gopen Mahinajet, Drew Griffin, Campbell Knowles, and unfortunately a couple of retirements, as we saw there with Jeremy Crow, as we caught on the camera, down at the exit of turn 2, car facing the wrong way, too much damage on the Black Rose Racing entry. Luke Stone at DNS here, unfortunately, got to the end of the pit lane, but had to pull the car back immediately, and it could not start this race. Daniel McDonald and Chris Duncan are yet to complete the series, unfortunately, but that is our grid here, and that is our results here tonight, gentlemen. So what a race that was. A lot of strategies there, a lot of surprising strategies in the name of Nick Pfaff as well. But here I am going to be I know George likes to do all this stuff here, but I'm going to have my turn. I'm going to throw to George Cooke for driver of the day and his intake of that race so far. So George, if you'd like to do the honors, let us know in the chat below who your driver of the day is. We might be split, we might be 3 in a row. We had a great round at Austria where all 3 of us got driver of the day right, but here it could be a little bit different. So I'm going to throw to you, George. It's your turn to be the first man to give us driver of the day, please, for round 9 of Play 1 Sim Gear GT3 Championship.
Oh, how the tables do turn, Nick. Well done. You've done well in securing that. Yeah, what a great race. Absolutely. And my driver of the day, for me, Matt Donetti just stands out. Takes his first win in Elite category. Takes the first win for CP Motorsports, as far as I know. Again, we'll fact check that. Strategy, exactly what I would have been looking to do myself out on track. And I think he just got it all right. You can't take it away from him. Pole position I think he did take the fastest lap there at the end, of course, with the 40.905, and takes home a win with a perfect strategy execution. It's a good day to be Matt Donetti. Driver of the day for him, absolutely. I'm going to throw it now to Andrew Scott.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be pretty unanimous, guys. I mean, you get pole position, you lead from pillar to post, and you do a 40.9. Yeah, I'd love to give it to Mick Hill for coming 4th overall and 1st in his class, but you can't deny Matt Donetti today for driver of the day.
Absolutely, and it's pole, fastest lap, and the race victory that gets you the clean sweep here at Catalunya. But I'm going to go left field here, gentlemen. I'm going to throw my driver of the day to Nick Pfaff for proving all of us here in the commentary booth that the 2-stopper was the wrong strategy, and he made that work perfectly. He pretty much came into the pit lane around about in that 5th place, 6th place, and he actually didn't lose it. So potentially, if he did go for a 1-stop, he may have been in that battle pack between himself, Dan Wood, Lewis Atkinson, and Mick Hill, potentially fighting for P2, I would say. But he did run a different strategy, something completely out of the textbooks, runs in P5, gets those points done. And yeah, my driver of the day is going to go to Nick Pfaff. Full left field there, full 360 on you, gentlemen. So it's 2-1. Let us know who the overall driver of the day is. Chat and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in to the MotorMotion E-Series YouTube channel. Give us a like and subscribe here for more MotorMotion action to conclude the 2024 campaign as we bring you Group B very shortly, as well as round 10 next week for the finale of the GT3 Championship.
Indeed, and we will go on a short break in a few moments' time. Like the left field there, very, very good. And we do like people who prove the commentary box wrong. That is, our egos are not so fragile that we can't be told we're absolutely wrong. Let's take a look at where the elite standings have ended up after this race, and it is a big switch here. Lewis Atkinson no longer leading the elite standings. In fact, now it is nearly a 3-point, in fact, it is a 3-point gap. Matt Donetti puts himself up there, and this is critical. This is why it was critical for Lewis Atkinson to finish in 2nd place. That would have been a 1-point difference, I believe, with Lewis Atkinson still leading, but Matt Donetti leads the elite standings, followed by Lewis Atkinson on 288 points, 3 points between them, and then 262 points again. What could have been for Gopi Mahinderjit for it all to come unstuck in the penultimate round. What a shame for him. Nick Pfaff in P4 claws his way back up ahead of Nathan Wakefield by just 4 points between himself in P4 and Nathan Wakefield in P5. Campbell Knowles in P6, Dan Wood in P7, and Chris Duncan in P8. Nick, take us through the pro standings, and then we'll head to a very short break before Group B.
Absolutely, and with those points, Mick Hill does extend his lead over Glenn Mead on 361 points over 334 on Glenn Mead. Jeremy Crow, unfortunately, with that DNF, has kept him in P3, and Luke Stone has actually kept himself in P4, but Matt McCallum's podium has now brought in a little bit of a closer battle between himself and Luke Stone to conclude this championship in the pro category. So sitting in 5th place very nicely there for the CP Motorsports driver. And then Drew Griffin, Dean Vanderson, after some strong points this time round at Catalunya, slowly closing the gap on Drew Griffin. He can close a little bit more in the finale, but see how much he can close. And unfortunately, Daniel McDonald, who only joined us for a couple of rounds, I believe 2 or 3 rounds, and unfortunately has missed the rest of the campaign here at MotorMotion E-Series, unfortunately down there in last place on 12 points next to his name there. But Mick Hill in cruise control, 27 points the gap between himself and Glenn Mead. So all it takes, George, for this championship to swing around in Glenn Mead's favour is if Mick Hill has a bad race, and we know Mick Hill, he doesn't really have a lot of bad races in him.
That's right. Yeah, we shall see how that progresses as we barrel towards the last round for Group A this season. For now, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with Group B coverage in a few minutes' time. All right, welcome back to the MotorMotion E-Series. I had to pronounce that one slightly better than I did at the intro, which I nearly got scolded for. Nonetheless, welcome back. It is time for Group B coverage here at the Player One SimGear GT3 Championship. No, I can't get it right. I'm just going to give up. We're just going to go with it. Round 9 continues. It's the penultimate round now for Group B. One more round left after this. It's Spa-Francorchamps coming up in about a week's time. Looking forward to that season conclusion very much. At the same time, we now need to see what Group Bazaar is going to do in the baffling heat of the Spanish territory here at Catalunya. The tyres are going to be absolutely murdered. We're going to see some very good action out on track, and we are all very, very much looking forward to this. Let's take a look at the qualifying order, which has just come in on our screens. Group B qualifying looks like this. Riley Nicholson for Pro-Am and CP Motorsports and the Lamborghini up on that top spot yet again, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what the Lamborghinis are on here tonight at Catalunya, but these guys at CP Motorsports have been getting this set up to absolute perfection. Riley Nicholson in Water Arrows has got that CP Motorsport and looking to emulate his teammate in Matt Donetti and try and see if he can get that, make it two out of two for the top step in the overall standings. But Riley Nicholson, on his short debut at MotorMotion E-Series, has been doing an absolute brilliant job. Clinical racing from him, getting podiums left, right, and centre. Rob Jacobs right behind, who is the championship contender in this Group B Pro-Am Championships, lines up in P2, and Mark Hasseldine rounds up in third place and pole position for the AM class. So we know he's wrapped up the Drivers' Championship and the Teams' Championship for his own team at Hassel One Motorsports. I think he's just having a little bit of fun, gets the car on pole position, third place. Then the rest of the grid, we have Jackson Dean lining up next to his team boss in fourth place. Then Shane Addard and Mark Pacheco. Keep an eye on that group pack between Mark Pacheco, Rick Atwell, as the Gridline Racing boys are here to challenge the Hooncourt boys with Rob Jacobs in P2. But then looking over to our second page, in eighth place we have Lightning Motorsports, Troy Britnell and Jeff Brun back again in the Pro-Am class for Diffusion Race Engineering, rounding up in ninth place. And then it's Aiden Chase, 10th place, fourth in class for Astor Racing. Then we have Kevin Cooper in 11th place, Robert Thomas for CP Motorsports, and Jack Finch for Black Rose Racing, 13th and last place in the AM class. Going to be some great racing here at Group B. I'll tell you what, the paella that Dan Woods cooked up for us here in the commentary books has been absolutely delicious here in the com box. He did a great drive from P4 to P2. It's really tasty. But here I am at Group B. Some drivers are going to be, I don't know if they're going to be burning this paella because there's going to be some chaos around it in the Group Bazaar, George. I'm really excited for it. I'm here for it at Catalunya.
Absolutely, and of course we do have another debutant on the grid. That is Oz Tomo. That's Robert Thomas for CP Motorsports. That's two debutants for CP Motorsports in the AM class in 3 races. So keep an eye on them today. Going to be a very interesting race with the Lamborghinis yet again showing great pace, but watch out for Rob Jacobs. He's on a bit of a charge, and bear in mind that with the Pro-Am all wrapped up, Jackson Dean taking that in round 8, there is still a bit of a battle for P2 between Rob Jacobs and Mark Pacheco, separated on the grid today by 4 positions. We're going to see who gets the strategy right. Let's go down on track and get this race started. Alrighty then, so Water Arrow will lead us away on the grid in that green CP Motorsports Lamborghini. Then Rob Jacobs lines up right behind him, followed by Mark Hasseldean and Jackson Dean. So the Deans, so to speak, all dining out last week after they won the Teams Championship and secured both the AM and the Pro-Am categories for drivers as well. Great stuff from them. Jackson Dean trying to defend early against Shane Attar, Sir Dids. Then Mark Pacheco in behind, also putting a little bit of pressure on early to the rear of P6 and P5. Mad Rick is in there too, so it's a good qualifying from him. And he is going to try and make up a few positions. We've already got a car off, and that is, I don't see that. That is, that's Troy Britnell hard into the wall. Mad Rick is the one who was turned around early in this race. It was a disaster early on for the Gridline Racing driver. He did. Well, that's what Troy Britnell did. He tried to avoid it, but he's actually damaged the car even more.
Ah, that's so unlucky for Troy Britnell. He's the only Lightning Motorsports driver on the grid here. So the team boss of Lightning Motorsports in the Audi RA is the sole driver out of the 4 cars that he's got that they brought here at Catalunya. 3 DNSs, and he's the only man on the grid here. And to get damage on that Audi R8, it's not a good look for Lightning Motorsports and to the championship.
Well, and even worse for Gridline Racing and Mark Pacheco, who need a good result here versus Hooncorp Esports to maintain a chance at getting that P2 position. Otherwise, they're going to have to perform really, really well out at Spa, which may be a challenge. We will see what happens there. At the moment, Kevin Cooper on the soft, inexplicably, on the soft tyres at the start of this race. That's going to be interesting for him. He's up in the P9 right now after that incident early on. Then Aiden Chase in P8, and Jeff Broom back on the grid and brewing up some paella as well. I'm absolutely sure those tyres will be lightning red hot at some point very soon. There's a move already by Kevin Cooper. Soft tyres will be good initially for a few overtakes, so they'll degrade rather quickly in this race. Mark Pacheco also now making a move on Shane Attard. Is he going to try down the inside line into turn 1? No room to go past the Astor Racing Porsche.
Absolutely, and I want to throw it to the pit lane reporter as soon as I can, to Ando Scott there. Ando, what can you tell us with the Hooncorp boys? One of them, Rob Jacobs, running on the racing hard tyres, but they've gone a complete 360 on Kevin Cooper's Audi R8.
Yeah, it's shades of Big Willow again, guys, isn't it? I don't know if it's a mistake from the team or if it's a intentional tactic, but one thing's clear: if he doesn't clear these medium and hard runners in front of him, it's going to be all for naught. He is up to 8th place now, and if he can get a couple of positions more and get up into that top 5 sort of thing, it may well pay dividends, guys, because he might be able to go long on the hards.
And we did see, of course, the 2 stop from Nick Pfaff last time working out. We could be seeing something similar from Kevin Cooper today.
Yeah, he started from P11. He's already up to P8. He looks like to make a size up and move on Jeff Bruin around the outside of turn 10. He can brake a lot later than Jeff Bruin. He's going to hold the Audi R8 around the outside. He does so nicely, but Jeff Bruin still keeps that Merc on the inside line, which goes to the outside. Very hard to keep those cars side by side through that little kink at turn 11 and through turn 12. Bruin keeps the Fusion Race Engineering Mercedes ahead of the Hooncorp in Kevin Cooper.
Bruin in the meta car. Driving beautifully. Keep it up, Jeff.
Yep, absolutely. Keep it up, Jeff, indeed. That was a good bit of defensive action there. And an early pit stop from Shane Attard. Jumps in on the hard.
Strategy.
It is indeed. It's getting the clean air. And we saw how effective that was, though, last time.
Yeah, he's done the Nick Pfaff strategy from Group A. So Shane Attard emulating his elite driver teammate, his faster teammate, as we see now Kevin Cooper throws the Audi R8 and still can't get the move done on Jeff Bruin. Jeff's holding it around the outside, potentially at turn 2. And can he hold it around the outside of turn 3? The softs will give him much more traction. And he's done it. Kevin Cooper now up to P6. little bit of clean air between himself and Mark Pacheco. But as you said there, Ando, he needs to get those soft tyres up to temperature. Oh, as he nearly gets collected there by Jeff Bruin after he ran too deep down at Repsol at turn 4. And as I was saying, he needs to get those soft tyres to work for him because he needs to get up towards that front pack. And that front pack is really, really close between Water Arrows in Rob Jacobs, Mark Hasseldine, Jackson Dean, and Mark Pacheco. They're not running away from each other, George.
No, not at all. It is very close at the top, only separated by just over a second between Watt Arrow and Mark Hasseldine. Jackson Dean has actually dropped slightly off the back of this pack, but he is still present. He is still there in this race, and that's a 0.5 second penalty for Rob Jacobs, running a bit wide at turn 9, and always been tagged in the rear there by Mark Hasseldine, who gets it slightly wrong. Didn't quite anticipate how slow Rob Jacobs was going to be from missing the apex through there. Neither of them coming off any worse for wear. That's a good sign. And yeah, that was a beautiful bit of racing between Kevin Cooper and Jeff Bruin. Absolutely stunning stuff, and it was over the course of about 8 corners as well. Really enjoyed watching that, and I think Andrew Scott was enjoying that too.
I sure was. Our illustrious leader Jeff Bruin there, showing his skills on the racing hards, mixing it with a soft runner. Yeah, that was sexy stuff.
Here we go into turn 1 for Jackson Dean, making a bit of a defensive move on the straight. One move done cleanly for our Pro-Am champion of
Very
2024.
defensive,
Very defensive indeed. Yeah, he really tried to hold off the slipstream, tried to hold that inside line. That is absolutely how you have to defend down the main pit straight.
Yeah, but it didn't look like there was a big gap between himself and Mark Pacheco. I think there was at least a few, at least 4 or 5 car lengths between himself and Mark Pacheco. So very interesting strategy to hug the inside line and get right up against the pit wall. But you can see now he's actually losing a lot of time to Mark Pacheco. Whoa. Well, that was a little bit of a heart and mouth moment there from the Gridline Racing boys. Unfortunately, obviously, we had a bit of a running joke that Interlagos was about the medical bills being sent to George Cooke in the commentary booth about him getting nearly heart attacks on him. That was literally a heart attack. And he's almost lost the car.
Nick, Pacheco's getting a bill. He's getting a bill. So is Polyphony. They can both get a bill. Absolutely unbelievable. That was a big snap, and that wasn't netcode there. Looks like Anto got a good view of it too. 2 nearly consequential moments for Mark Pacheco in this race, and unfortunately for him, Kevin Cooper has found his way past that BMW. It's just so unstable on the rear right now.
And he's running on the racing hard tyres. Kevin Cooper has now made the move. Whoa, Jesus. I think I'm going to need to keep quiet here, George, because he's setting my heart rate up to 200.
I can't handle this right now. Let's throw down to Andrew Scott. We're seeing mostly hard tyres out there on the track. We are seeing one person on the mediums at the moment, and of course Kevin Cooper on the soft tyres. Can you give us an update to see how they're all going? Are they doing a long run mostly on the hard tyres? Will they be switching to the mediums for a short period of time at the end of this race?
Yeah, I think everyone's on the one-stopper again for the majority. It'll be interesting to see what Renegade does with his strategy. He might be able to pull off a one-stopper if he goes long on the softs. And I mean, having a look at Pacheco racing against Renegade, it looks like it's a combination of like balls out racing plus a bit of net code. He's giving us all Code Brown moments, isn't it? But he's hanging in there with Renegade. So it looks like the softs are about to cross over with the other tyres now. But Renegade's got himself up to 5th position. So he's actually made it work. And he might be able to bring home a good result here for Hooncorp, who are in that massive battle for 2nd place with Gridline.
Whoa, nearly had a wide moment there through Campster at turn 9. That gives Mark Pacheco the opportunity to retake P5 away from Kevin Cooper. As alluded, the crossover looks to be happening there, but runs deep in the BMW, so these guys are still battling it out through the fast kink at turn 11. No one's going to give quarters through there as they go through turn 12. Around the outside goes Kevin Cooper. Can he hold it there? No, Mark Pacheco seals that and gets up to P5. Some nice racing between these two drivers, the Gridline and Hooncorp Esports. This is, remember, as mentioned by Ando, the battle for P2 in this championship. We saw what happened in Group A, where Hooncorp has got the upper hand so far in the points. It's now up to Group B and Lobby B to try and capitalize on this and try and get the points back to whether it falls in favor of Gridline and retaking P2 or Hooncorp extending their lead.
That's right. We've got to remember that Madrick's already had a bit of a disaster this race. That's the other Gridline Racing driver in AM class. So it's not going the way of Gridline as it is right now. So it's even more critical that Pacheco can keep hold of P4 right now and really hope that Rob Jacobs will make a mistake or he'll somehow get back in to range to make some sort of overtake for the points in the team's championship. This is absolutely critical for Gridline Racing to make a stand now and make this work. And bear in mind, for Pacheco, he's only 6 points in the drivers' Pro-Am standings behind Rob Jacobs as well. So it's a real bad situation right now for Gridline Racing, and they've got a lot of work to do in the next 40 minutes to swing that pendulum back their direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to see as well that down there, Shane Addard setting the fastest lap of 1 minute 43 flat. Obviously, he is one of the drivers that came out of the pit lane at the end of lap 2 to get off those hard tyres and do the Nick Pfaff strategy and run on the racing medium tyres. I did see that Mark Hasseldine was running up in P2, but I wonder where his name has gone there. I've seen his name tumble down the order. I'm not so sure where Mark Hasseldine's name is there.
It's a retirement.
It's a retirement from the champion of 2024. That has come out of nowhere. I'm not so sure what happened there. We might cut it over to Ando in a short matter of time to what happened to Mark Hasseldine, but that has shocked us. He was ahead of Rob Jacobs, and then all of a sudden he's not there. So the AM driver, who is the champion in 2024, has DNFs from this race, George. That is huge because that does give Kevin Cooper the overall lead in the amateur class, and he's on the soft tyres. So really good showing there by Renegade.
Yep, and this is just working in Hoonkorp's favour right now, looking really strong in this race with P2 in the Pro-Am class with Rob Jacobs, and then of course P1 in the AM class with Kevin Cooper is on the soft tyres, and a penalty for Rob Jacobs. So the superstitious among us might be trying to throw salt over their shoulder and wish these guys good luck, because the superstition is starting to creep in with the penalties and the soft tyres, but we shall see how the race evolves for Hoonkorp. But yeah, I mean, a totally meaningless situation really for Hassel One Motorsport with their main AM class and owner in Mark Hasseldine, of course, no longer in this race. They don't really need to worry about it. They can sort of save up some parts for next season, whatever that does end up being in terms of format and car choice for them. But that does mean that Jackson Dean is now in third place, followed by his former rival in Pro-Am, Mark Pacheco. Let's look down the rest of the grid. Kevin Cooper still holding on to P5. The soft tyres starting to look really bad after only 11 minutes. I'd be surprised if he can make it towards even the 20-minute mark, but if he can, this could work out. We said before, you really want to be on the faster compounder tyres for only 20 minutes, 30 minutes on those hard compounds. Then Jeff Bruin in P6, followed by Aiden Chase in P7 on the hard tyres, and actually doing really, really well here for Astor Racing. We'll see what his strategy unfolds to be, I should say. Then is Shane Attard here in P8. On debut in the AM class, it is Robert Thomas for CB Motorsports, holding a little bit of damage on the car, so has not had the best of first stints here, but he's not last at the moment, and he's still in the top 10, followed by Troy Britnell, who's come into the pits and repaired the damage on the car, and then Mad Rick, who looks to have done the same. Gridline Racing holding the fastest lap with Mad Rick of 1 minute 42.815.
Yeah, I want to keep my eye on Shane Addard down in 8th place. You can see him as he comes barreling down towards turn 1 right now as the cars are exiting turn 4. Repsol and entering turn 5 is the race leader in Water Arrows and Riley Nicholson. I want to be able to keep my eye on and see how much progress Shane Addard can do on that 2-stop strategy. Can he emulate something similar to what his elite driver teammates in Nick Pfaff could do, get himself inside the top 5? Could he potentially get himself onto the podium? Because considering how close the pack is here, George, in Lobby B, it is quite close battles up from first down even to Aiden Chase down in 7th place.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's time for us to talk a little bit more about the tyres and the situation we're in. We're on board with Aiden Chase in 7th place. Just ahead of us, Jeff Bruin in 6th, and then Kevin Cooper in 5th. And Kevin Cooper's charge seems to have come to a bit of an end now. Let's throw it down to Andrew. What can you tell us about the tyres and the strategy in this group?
Yeah, I think he might be in this lap because Jeff Bruin's making huge gains on him, and Renegade's just struggling to keep that R8 pointed in the right direction. But he's done pretty well on it. But if he pits as he stays out again, so the one stop's still on for him. I feel if he pits and goes onto, he might go onto mediums, guys, and then he might go onto hards, and he might do a two stop using all 3 compounds. So he's going to have to stay out for a little bit longer and then switch onto the hards, I think, to make this strategy work. So time will tell.
Yeah, I think he's about 5 minutes in the deficit from the one-stop strategy with those soft tires, Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I was thinking 35 minutes on a hard tyre. It is doable around here, but I'm not so sure if the fuel tank will say otherwise. The RDR8 is a little bit better on its fuel tank compared to the Mercedes. Not as good as the Porsche 911 has, who actually has some really good fuel on board in the hands of Aidan Chase as well as Shane Attard. But yeah, 35 minutes of hard tyre running. It's going to be a little bit tricky. Is if he can hold on, those tires look absolutely real, and he want to be putting that brake bias all the way to the front and just really get those front tires heated up and really worn out, just to preserve those rears, because he has to be letting go of that throttle pretty early, and you have to get onto the throttle a lot later compared to the other drivers behind him. And Jeff Bruin, as you can see, is really closed up on Kevin Cooper, whilst those two are having a nice battle in the early stages of the race. Is now coming in roles reversed. The leader of AM class getting pressured by Jeff Bruin in Pro-Am, whilst the second place AM driver, Aidan Chase, is lurking in the background.
He is, yeah. We did say earlier on in the commentary box, we love to be proven wrong, makes things very, very interesting, and we always learn something new, and we are seeing something new at the moment by Kevin Cooper right now. Does do one more lap, so he is keeping it on the tarmac for the moment and actually doing a better job than we were thinking, and that is fantastic work for him. He is slightly running slightly higher on the fuel value as well than Jeff Bruin behind him. So this is going to be a battle that we're going to keep on board with. But as you can see on the right-hand side, the timing tower, it is showing those laps starting to really drop off in pace. And for Jeff Bruin, this is just another opportunity. He's going to have way more grip when the overtaking opportunity does come Jeff Bruin's way. I think it'll be a relatively easy overtake. That said, we know Kevin Cooper will fight hard for the position. And don't count out Aidan Chase as well. It's all to play for. We are heading into the 17th minute of this race in short order. 10 laps done. Riley Nicholson still leads us away with a reasonably good margin. He is solid at the top. And the Lamborghinis and CP Motorsports, this is their round. This isn't Barcelona de Catalunya. This is Barcelona de Lamborghini de CP Motorsports at the moment.
There you go. That's a good one there for you, George. I applaud that. But yeah, absolutely great performance here by CP Motorsports, as we saw Matt Donetti and Matt McCallum getting podiums for the first time here at Catalunya, and Riley Nicholson looks to be emulating that continued success for CP Motorsports, while CP Motorsports is unfortunately last place in the Constructors' Championship, in the Teams' Championship. Some handy points are going to come to their name, and they're going to start making gains in the Teams Championship. We'll find out at the end of the race where the results are in Lobby B and the Teams Championship. But it's like you said, it's great. Ooh, Jeff Bruin going for a massive corner cut there. Looked like I wonder if he actually picked up his penalty next to his name there, because it looked like he cut so much of turn 13. No, he actually gets away with it. So that was quite an ambitious corner cut there by Jeff Bruin.
Yeah, he was teetering on the edge of the FIA's ire, and that is not somewhere that you want to be as a driver or a team. Nonetheless, he does get away with it this time, and I think he was just thinking, I can really close up. I've got to get a good run through 13, got to get onto the back of the man ahead of me, Kevin Cooper, for turn 14, but probably wasn't aware that the pit stop was upcoming for the man who's just refueling now. Let's keep an eye and see what tyre he comes out on. Troy Britnell will be coming past him in short order, and looks like we may have lost another driver out on track here today. It is soft tyres again. No, it's hard tyres. Hard tyres it is. So that's a 32-minute stint and potentially a one-stop strategy here. He's not fueled up to 100% either. So this is going to be interesting. He's going to have to fuel save and be very conservative on this stint.
I'll tell you who it is, George, and this is critical in this championship. Rick Atwell and Madrick has retired from this race.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that is really sad news for Gridline Racing, who fell behind the points from Hooncorp Esports in Group A, now find themselves with only one driver remaining in this grid, and that driver is behind by 2 positions from a Corp Esports car. So Gridline Racing's chance at P2 in the team's championship is really starting to slip away from them, and they're only going to have one more round to remediate that, and it's going to be reliant on Corp Esports having a shocker at Spa-Francorchamps. So that is big news for the team standings.
You got to remember as well, Corp actually had double DNFs last time at Austria. Rob Jacobs unfortunately had a massive netcode disconnect on his end at Austria, and also his teammate Kevin Cooper wasn't present. So Lobby B had no Corp drivers. So that's how Gridline Racing managed to claw back in the championship fight between for the battle for P2. But now with Rick Atwell's retirement, I'm not so sure what Ando could tell us there. What happened? Obviously, it must have just been a disconnect on Rick Atwell's end. But yeah, it's costly because it's all about consistency throughout this whole championship. And unfortunately, with Gridline Racing, Ando, there's been a bit of a struggle streak for your boys down in the camp.
Yeah, quite tragic actually, because we were, hammer and tong there with Corp for second place, but we'll still be in it. I think we've got Pacheco up there. He could get some good points today. So we're still in it, but we're definitely losing ground this round now to Corp, whose amateur driver Renegade. I'm really confused with his strategy, because he's come into the pits on lap 8. He's chosen the hard tyres, which implies a 1-stop, but then he's under-fueled, which implies a 2-stop. So I really don't know what they're doing down there at Corp. I'm really interested to see what they do with this amateur car.
Yeah, I will be surprised, unless he does a lot of fuel saving in this Audi, if he can make it to the end of the race.
And
he's
not.
Tank. He's just not.
He's not.
He's full throttle. It's max RPM. And then when you also take into account that it's a 1 kilometer straight, and that's going to be a penalty for him as well.
And he gets the paddling.
Yeah, I was going to say that I heard the car running at full revs at the end of the straight there. You could just hear it through the commentary box. The Audi R8 sounds absolutely fantastic amongst the rest of the field. You could just hear him. He's just going full revs there. So he's going full send here, George and Ando. And I feel like he's definitely, obviously, he looks to be on that 2-stop strategy, not the 2-stop strategy that we're seeing at the moment with Shane Attard and what we saw in Lobby A with Nick Pfaff, but he could be getting himself back onto a set of soft tyres and he'd be like, you know what, I'm here for fun. I'm here to get myself an extra bonus point on the fastest lap. So he might be doing that. He might be trying to go for an extra bonus point.
He's not here for fun. He's here to get points for his team to secure second in the championship. So I don't know. I think they've given the work experience guy the keys to the strategy department at Corp this week. I honestly think that's what they've done here. So let's see how it works out.
Well, we'll have to have some comment from the MotorMotion side leader of Corp Esports, Lewis Atkinson, and the team owner Nathan Howe at some point, and see what the strategy, who's been holding the strategy keys, and whether or not they've hired some strategists for this race. It will be interesting to find out. But I think absolutely right. Yeah, he might be looking at something. I mean, we know he went about, what was it, 15, 16 minutes or so on the soft tyres. He might be looking to go for a 20-minute hard stint, get it towards that window again, jump onto the softs again, absolutely go for it. But again, this is one of the longer pit stops in the race. It's why the broadcasting team has been jumping onto the pit stops and then jumping away immediately, because it takes a minute and a half for them to get down to their pit box.
Yeah, absolutely. And, whilst we saw Shane Attard, like, he's now on a 2-stop strategy, he's actually starting to close up a little bit on Aiden Chase there, his amateur teammate in 6th place. But another man that's doing a really good job on debut, Oztomo Robert Thomas in 8th place for CP Motorsports, getting some good points for the team so far. So the CP boys are here to play, as he actually now comes into the pit lane 23 minutes into this race. He's going to do 27
damage.
Oh, that's right. I remember we saw that in the opening couple of laps there with the number 6 CP Motorsports. The purple and black livery of the CP Motorsports. Obviously, the CP Motorsport boys varying their colours, with the yellow going to Matt Donetti, the orange for Matt McCallum, the green for Riley Nicholson, and the purple for Robert Thomas. So a nice way to identify the drivers in that Lamborghini Hurricane. And the battle in the amateur class there, unfortunately, drops down out of out of the screenshot of top 8 positionings, with Troy Britt now rounding up in 8th place. But the battle for P3 is heating up here. We know these two drivers, they know each other very well. And this is going to be a nice way to conclude this first stint, George, if these two end up going for a nice heated battle when it comes to the pit lane.
Yeah, that's right. I've talked to these guys a number of times, and they are great friends. A friendship that has developed actually in this season. They didn't know each other beforehand, ended up fighting for the championship title. It was going back and forth between the two. A lot of nerves, a lot of anxiety between them as to who was going to come out on top. At the end of the day, it was Jackson Dean that found his way to the top spot. But boy, oh boy, these guys have really solidified an amazing friendship. I'd be surprised, actually, if we didn't see them trying to operate in the same team at some point. That said, depends on who's going up a category and who's not. I suspect that Jackson Dean might be pinged for a pro seat next season. But of course, we've got plenty of different things arranged for 2025, none of which I can announce now, but expect to see at the very least another solid TCR championship, a couple of seasons of that, most likely in 2025, and of course the 2025 GT3 championship, which will also be making a glorious return to our screens. Looking forward to that very much, and this battle may end up being one that we see evolve over a long period of time. So
and it's game on. Yeah,
and it is indeed
game
game
on, George.
Yeah,
because these two guys are in the same car, they've got the same fuel, and they're on the same tyres.
interesting.
The tyre wear is identical, and they're nose to tail, and we're just coming up to the pit window now. So if Pacheco knows what's good for him, he might try an undercut here on this lap.
I think that'd be the sensible thing to do, because then you get the clean air, you get to go out, get a really good lap in, especially if you feel like you've got more pace than the car ahead. And it does make me wonder if maybe these two have been exchanging some ideas, because at the beginning of the season, Jackson Dean was very much the conservative, take it easy, try and execute a strategy.
Go in
Didn't
there,
always get
Paco.
it right.
Get in there. Oh,
Let's see. No,
he didn't do it.
The powers of friendship, Andrew Scott, keeping them magnetized to each other on track as well.
Well, he's enjoying the slip, so he might be saving some fuel here over his opponent, but they really are very close on tyres and fuel. So this is game on for the final spot on the podium between these two.
And we've seen some great racing amongst these two in both Jackson Dean and Mark Pacheco, all the way from round 1 all the way up to here at round 9. So these guys have been pretty much neck and neck with each other, tooth and nail with each other, bumper to bumper, side by side, great close battles between them. And unfortunately, it's just always been what could have been for Mark Pacheco. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things that have gone wrong for the 773 in Gridline Racing BMW M6 Sprint, that he had multiple victories taken away from him, not through no fault of his own, but unfortunately just with the team when it comes to the strategy team. Unfortunately, just a few strategy calls that wasn't made, that wasn't the perfect strategy, as we see dust being kicked up there by Jackson Dean, which makes him run wide at turn 9 through Kamsar, gives Mark Pacheco an opportunity to see if he can actually throw the nose on the inside or have a little sniff down at turn 10, makes Jackson Dean cover the inside line just a tiny bit, just to take a narrow line through turn 10, and he's closed up a lot there. 3/10 gained on Jackson Dean on this second sector, so he's closing, but it's about coming in. Who's going to come in at the end of this lap? Will Pacheco follow Dean? Will Dean come in? Will Pacheco go for an undercut? We'll see as they cross the pit lane right now. Mark Pacheco going for the overcut, and we're going to see a nice battle between those two drivers. 15% fuel has Jackson Dean has got on his car, so it's time for Mark Pacheco, as they say in the famous words of Peter Boddington, it's hammer time. It's hammer time.
Yeah, he's got to make this. He was the faster car, though, wasn't he? He was really all over the back bumper of Jackson Dean there. So he's really driving the wheels off this car at the moment, and he's handling the worn hards a bit better than Jackson Dean was. But this is the critical lap, and likewise for Jackson Dean on his out lap on the mediums.
Yeah, the mediums actually do wear out. Actually, do take quite a while to heat up as well, Ando. So they're not really the great tires on the exit of the pit lane compared to a warm hard tire.
Yeah,
so the warm hard tire is going to be potentially in favour of Mark Pacheco if he can actually get
Possibly.
all his apexes right. The fuel might say something different. Jackson Dean came into the pit lane with 15%. He's going to get quite close to the 10% mark, probably at the end of this stint as he comes into the pit lane. Just takes a nice and conservative through turn 9.
They
There you
were
go.
identical on fuel, so it'll come down to who's better on the in-lap and the out-lap. But you're right, Nick. The cold mediums with a high fuel load might be holding him back here. So the overcut might be on. It might actually be on.
The man that gives us a heart attack, the man that gave us a heart attack in the early stints is about to come into the pit lane right now. Auto arrows in Riley Nicholson has come into the pit lane. So that's all of the main drivers coming into the pit lane. Jeff Bruin and Aiden Chase are yet to come through, circulating through as they come into the pit lane themselves right now. Aiden Chase, Jeff Bruin, and we also have Shane Attard looking like he's going to come into the pit lane too. Just follow everybody else. Doesn't look like he actually has. So he's actually did not take any fuel in that short stint. But he's followed everyone else's strategy and is going for that 2-stop to make it work. But it is a crucial one. Water Arrows potentially will be coming out of the lead in P1. Rob Jacobs could be a contender as he actually comes down the pit lane, pit straight right now. Water Arrows looks like he's taking quite a fair bit of fuel here, and Rob Jacobs is potentially going to go for a massive undercut on Water Arrows. We're going to wait and see. Where's the Hooncorp car? There it is. Rob Jacobs has done a brilliant undercut on Riley Nicholson, now takes the lead of this race here. Jackson Dean still holds on to P3. He's actually made that undercut work compared to Mark Pacheco, so the undercut worked nicely there for the Hassel 1 driver, but Rob Jacobs takes the lead ahead of Water Arrows in Riley Nicholson, Jackson Dean 3rd, Mark Pacheco 4th, Jeff Brun running him in P6, Troy Britnell yet to make a pit stop. But gentlemen, I want to let you know who the leader of AM class is. Aiden Chase for Asta Racing. What a name. That name has not come through at all this season. He's been close to being in the P1 position, but now he's holding on to P1 with only 29 minutes of racing to go. So a whole heap of changes in the second stint, George.
Wow, that's a massive switch up. So the pit stops have proved absolutely crucial. The amount of fuel taken on board by the cars as well. Slightly less fuel in the tank for Rob Jacobs, both on the medium tyres though. In P1 and P2, Jackson Dean extends his lead over Mark Pacheco, who's put a fair bit of fuel in his car compared to Jackson Dean. There's going to be a little bit of an overfueling. It might work his way. He'll be able to get on the throttle a little bit harder through the remaining 20 minutes in this race. This is an absolutely brilliant switch up. I think Mark Pacheco might have missed a little bit of a trick. If he had gone in slightly earlier, he might have just been able to claw back towards the top 2. Nonetheless, continuing the order, he does have more fuel. Troy Britnell will be
Jackson
in.
Dean's done a massive underfuel, guys, to make sure he stays in front of Pacheco. So Jackson Dean's going to have to really watch those fuel figures. He's going to be vapors at the end of the race.
And this is something we've seen all season long. So you make a really good point there, Ando, because Jackson Dean has always been the one who's been right on the limit of the fuel, whereas Mark Pacheco has been the one who's always overfueled a little bit much, but maybe the roles have slightly reversed at the end of the season.
Yeah, and crucially, Pacheco's tyres are a lap younger. So we're already seeing wear on Jackson Dean's front left medium tyre, and that could be crucial in the final stages.
Well, a track like this, it's actually that one lap wear difference between the two cars is huge, Ando. Obviously, with a track with so many corners and a lot of sharp corners, sweeper corners, a lot of heavy braking and a lot of sharp corners. It's a driver's circuit, this one, kind of like Suzuka in Japan, but it takes its toll on the tyre wear, as you said. That one lap difference could be crucial towards the end of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and with this game now, there's a bit of a cliff with the tyres when it comes to overworking them. So if Jackson Dean cops a bit of pressure from Paco at the end of the race, he might overwork that front left. And once it gets overworked, it overtemps. Once it overtemps, it becomes slidey, and then it's like game over. So So it's game on here. I wouldn't discount Pacheco for P3 just yet.
There we go. Yeah, it is the eternal balance that drivers have to maintain with their tyres. Do not go over the threshold because it's a runaway effect. Somewhat like climate change, you might suspect. But nonetheless, metaphor aside,
That's
is a
not
critical...
thing, is it?
I don't know. I'm not a scientist, so I shouldn't really be commenting, should I? It's another windmill reference from me. But continuing back, it is the balance that needs to be maintained. It's a runaway effect, so it's all about tyre management and preservation at a track like this. And that third corner there is a critical part of that. How you navigate that each lap is going to make a big difference on the state of the tyres. Let's take a quick look around the grid as the final pit stops look to have been made in this race. Jeff Bruin finds himself in P5. He's only been back for one race prior to this, and this will be his best result of the season so far, jumping in for Diffusion Race Engineering. Aiden Chase, as Nick told us earlier, leading AM class, and we're going to talk about this man. Oh my goodness, we're going to talk about him after I send him a bill for my heart attack. We're going to talk about him in a few moments' time. Let's go through the rest of the grid. Kevin Cooper, still on the hard tyres at this stage. The fuel's looking a little bit here and there. That is another topic that we will return to in a few moments' time. Shane Attard chasing him down at the moment in P8. Troy Britnell ran out on the medium tyres for a long, long time. I think he jumped in reasonably early on the hard tyres. He's now on the racing softs for the last 15 minutes of this race. And then it is Robert Thomas still holding damage on that CP Motorsports purple entry, the number 6. And doing reasonably well. Got fuel to the end and mediums to the end of this race as well. Only 10 now on the grid, unfortunately. And we've had a big switch up at the front, Nick. And we may just have to sort out Nick's microphone in a few moments' time. Nonetheless, that big news at the front is a 1 minute 41.9 from Water Arrow. Riley Nicholson puts his CP Motorsports car back up into the top spot. Can't match the pace, unfortunately. Can Rob Jacobs. He is lacking on that side of things, and that has put him at a disadvantage back to P2, so back to the starting grid order on this, and of course both of the medium tyres, 1 lap better for Water Arrow, who did lose the lead after the pit stops. Jackson Dean also doing well. Let's talk about Aiden Chase. And has Nick returned to the commentary box? We shall see in a few moments' time. And just double checking, looks like my Discord has had a little bit of a problem. So ladies and gentlemen, we will get this sorted out and we will come back to you with Nick in a few minutes time, because at the moment it looks like we're having a little bit of problem with our Discord server. So we will do some double checking. We'll stay on board with Aiden Chase for the moment. In fact, we're going to go for an onboard lap with him. So stay tuned. We will be back in a few moments time. In fact, it does look like we've had a little bit of an internet outage on this side, so some of the pit information is not coming up on our screens. We will return to you in a few minutes' time. Please enjoy the full onboard lap with Aiden Chase as we head towards the 40-minute mark through this big moment for Aiden Chase. Crikey, that is scary. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and continuing with our onboard lap with Aiden Chase. And I do get to tell you that there was a small technical issue here in the commentary booth. We have re-established connection to both Nick Bautasso and Andrew Scott. Welcome back into the chat. Nothing really changed since we had that technical interruption, but we've been on board with Aiden Chase, and we wanted to talk a little bit about Aiden Chase because he is currently leading the AM class at the moment, and he is on for his first victory in the category now.
Yeah, absolutely, and it becomes in a bit of an unfortunate way because we only have 10 drivers, and I believe there's only about 4 AM drivers left in this field. We have Aiden Chase leading the AM class, Troy Britnell, P2 for Lightning Motorsports. He's actually made a pit stop, and then I believe down the back end we can also see Kevin Cooper and Oz Thomas. So Oz Thomas and Robert Thomas in his debut for MotorMotion E-Series running in the Lamborghini Hurricane for CP Motorsports, doing a good job. But as we predicted here, Kevin Cooper is back on the racing soft tyres. He's going for it. I think we called this early in the broadcast that he was going to go for a bit of a soft stint towards to conclude his race with just over, we're about to hit 10 minutes of racing left. So he looks like he's going to get himself onto the podium. And more crucially, George, he's going to get himself some good points for Hooncorp Esports. But back to Aiden Chase, it's a great performance nonetheless. Whether you have 4 drivers, 2 drivers, or a grid of 8 drivers of drivers there, it becomes
He's miles in front. He's miles in front. He's killing it.
Yeah, exactly right. And yeah, I mean, Astor Racing have had a season that's been very up and down. Aiden Chase has contributed his fair chunk of points throughout the season with some pretty consistent results all the way through. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough. That overall team performance just didn't really match what they were able to do in 2023 after they rebranded from Scarborough Motorsport to Astor Racing. And yeah, I mean, it's a bit of an upward climb for this team now, really. But Aiden Chase is going to play his part in that over time. And we hope to continue seeing him in the MotorMotion E-Series. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. Kevin Cooper, I'm not sure if he's proved us wrong yet, Andrew Scott. What are your thoughts?
Not quite yet. He got past Oz Tomo there, Rob Thomas, but that was a little bit of a seal clubbing moment because Rob Thomas is carrying damage, front splitter and front right suspension, and he's on worn medium. So that was a given, I guess you'd say. But he's got a little bit of ground to make up on Brits Lightning here. A fair bit, like a long way to go. But sorry to cut you off there, Spud, but Chase, yeah, he's kicking goals. He's way in front. He's miles in front of Brits Lightning.
And he's also ahead of his two-mate, two-stop strategist in Shane Addard as well. So unfortunately for Shane Addard, he hasn't really made those inroads that we thought that he would have done compared to what he did with his elite driver in Nick Pfaff in Lobby A. So unfortunately, that two-stop hasn't worked for Shane Addard in this race. As you can see, the rest of the field from 1st to 5th place, all in the Pro-Am category, being led by Riley Nicholson, Rob Jacobs, Jackson Dean, Mark Pacheco, and Jeff Brown, your top 5, and the top 5 in the Pro-Am standings, with Aiden Chase 6th place, Shane Attard, Troy Britnell, Kevin Cooper, and Robert Thomas rounding up our 10 drivers with a couple of DNFs next to the name there. But we did see Rob Jacobs take the initial lead at the end of the pit stops, and he took the lead for a couple of laps, but I believe it was a half-second penalty that lost him the lead down to turn 10, and Riley Nicholson has now retaken the lead for CP Motorsports in the Pro-Am class and looks to be in a prime position to take victory here tonight, unless any unfortunate things happen. And we see that at plenty of time here, George. Half-second penalties, half spins, overheating tyres, you name it, anything can happen here in Barcelona.
Yeah, Catalunya is a circuit where if you're going slow, you're going to lose extra time, be it in the pit stop, be it with a penalty, be it missing the apex, be it overheating the tyres. All of those become even more consequential than they are at other tracks. And that is why I think Catalunya creates some really fantastic races, especially for this GT3 Championship, which has this fantastic system behind it that gives us this amazing racing. The fact that we are, only one race away from the end of the championship. We've still got a lot that is yet to be decided this year for the GT3 Championship. Just shows how well this championship has been set up. I'm going to come back to that in a few moments' time. But for now, I do want to talk Mark Pacheco, and I want to throw it down to Ando because he put some money, or certainly threw his chips in with Mark Pacheco to come back. He's starting to do so.
He is. He's looking better on tyres marginally than his nemesis in front of him. And he's made some gains. He looks to be better on the worn tyre. But the problem with that is that he's lost track position the whole race. So he hasn't had track position on Jackson Dean the whole race. So he's been right on his clacker with better pace on the worn tyre, but he's not been able to do anything with it. So when he gains on Jackson Dean now, because his tyres are looking to be a fair bit better now, and he's got a little bit less fuel, but I think plenty of fuel for the end, he's got to make a move. He's got to actually put his money where his mouth is. He's got to lick a stamp or two, and he's got to make a move on Jackson Dean if he wants to gain a position.
Yeah, and he's done 43-1 versus Mark Pacheco's 42-5 or 42-6 rather. So yeah, so he's got the pace, Mark Pacheco, but it's only, we're about to hit 5 minutes left of racing. He's actually closing up so much through to turn 5 there. So it's all to lose for Mark Pacheco and all to defend for Jackson Dean's life to hold on to that P3, because Mark Pacheco is the man that's flying, Paco, flying in his gridline racing BMW, but time seems to be running out for Mark Pacheco, and we have seen this situation so many times in this championship, George, where it's been Jackson Dean ahead of Mark Pacheco putting all the pressure, always came to strategy, bad strategy calls for Mark Pacheco, but now it looks to be the strategy could be working in his favor, but as Ando said, track position is what he's missing.
Yeah, but he's actually got significantly more fuel, guys.
Yeah.
It has a tank slapper moment there, but he's got significantly more fuel. So I think Jackson Dean's in fuel save mode right now, and he might be a little bit of a sitting duck.
Yeah, and this is really it, isn't it? At the end of the day, in terms of qualifying pace, these two have been fairly even for the most part. I'd say Mark Pacheco has taken higher qualifying results throughout the season, and overall, I mean, I think I'm right in saying this, that Pacheco does seem to have the pace on Jackson Dean, but Jackson Dean's been he's really cool, calm, collected. He saves fuel when he needs to, puts the right tyres on, puts the right amount of fuel in for the most part. It's a conservative driving style and strategy style from Jackson Dean, but it's almost like a less risky way of approaching the race. And yes, he's missed out on some results from that conservative approach, and Pacheco likewise has missed out on some results from being maybe a bit too quick in some cases, or putting too much fuel in the car, or using the wrong tyres. But overall, Pacheco has always showed some fantastic pace. He's shown that now. When the stars align, he's absolutely unstoppable compared to Jackson Dean. We saw that in the early few rounds, and with a few rounds that have really ended up shaping this championship.
And he's there. He's literally pouncing. You could just see through this whole onboard lap how much he's actually gaining on Jackson Dean through every single corner. So he's using those tyres to its absolute limit, using that one lap freshness on those racing mediums compared to Jackson Dean, who did the undercut on Mark Pacheco. So he's actually using those tyres to his advantage to really lean on them a little bit more through some of the more loading corners of this track here. Obviously, the right-handers being the most dominant, running in a clockwise direction here at Circuit of Barcelona, Catalunya, but he's really gaining on him. You can just see there. You can just see within that lap time. I won't be surprised if he's actually gained at least 4 to 5 tenths on this lap here. It's about to cross the start-finish line.
Yeah, but
a complete lap 27. Lap 27 to start. Lap 28, as Oz Tomo has actually had a bit of an accident there on the pit straight, unfortunately, and he's got a lot of damage, front splitter and front right suspension damage, so that's not the way that he wanted to end his race here at MotorMotion in his debut race for CP Motorsports. But Jackson Dean, a 43 flat on lap 27 versus Mark Pacheco's 1 minute 42.8, so only 2 tenths there. Looked like he gained a lot there, but he's lost a bit of time there, and like you said there, Ando, time is running out for Mark Pacheco.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not sure it's enough. Jackson Dean might have pulled off a master stroke here, strategy-wise. I mean, you guys know some guys are just naturally quick, aren't they? Like, they've just got the raw talent. But Jackson Dean seems to be, like, naturally, like, smart with his racecraft and his strategy. Like, he's really, if he stays ahead here and pulls off a podium position, this is a master stroke, and my hat's off to him.
Yeah, and I think this would really go even further to cement why he's our champion in Pro-Am class. I mean, the results have been consistent throughout the season for him, and yes, he's had a few hiccups here and there, but overall it's that collectedness that we've seen from Jackson Dean, sticking really to a strategy that he's worked hard on and produces the result, executes it well. So the execution and calculation of the strategy has really made it up.
Yeah, just to put it in perspective, guys, he's pitted a lap early. He's taken less fuel. He's intentionally underfueled to stay ahead. And now he's managing that lead because he knows this track is hard to pass at. So he's got a lap or two to go, and it looks like he's going to pull it off.
Yeah, well, this is the last lap, and you can just get the fuel numbers. He's got it right. And Mark Pacheco, I mean, I don't want to say it because we thought it was a little bit of a master stroke. He's overfueled the car again at Gridline Racing.
Oh, he's done a Dernity.
Well, he's done a Donetti, and he's done, unfortunately, a Mark Pacheco at Suzuka. This is exactly what we saw. He came across the line with nearly 20 litres of fuel, or just above that, at Suzuka. Yeah. And now we're at the end of the race. It's the last lap, and he's got about 18 litres of fuel on board. And it's just, that amount of difference, if we take that in terms of second, it's 4 seconds. If he had got this right, he'd be miles ahead of Jackson Dean at this point. And I would also argue as well with regards to this, you don't see a situation more diverse between these two drivers. One has got the Pro-Am Championship and the Teams Championship, and the other, Gridline Racing, fighting for a position in the Teams Championship, fighting to hold on with a disaster of results in the last few races and across the season, and fighting also for his position in the Drivers' Championship against Rob Jacobs, who's cruised on by and is about to come around the final quarter to a very well-deserved P2 in this race. And we haven't talked about Riley Nicholson enough at all. It's been a super boring race for him out the front, but what a great race by Water Arrow and CP Motorsports, and the Lamborghini takes home a inaugural victory for CP Motorsports in Pro-Am and his own inaugural victory for himself. Only 3 or 4 races in this season for him. Rob Jacobs comes home P2, a familiar spot for him. That tyre at the front left, all sorts of dead. Jackson Dean comes across the line, and it was actually quite close at the end.
He's happy too. Look at him.
Yeah, he's absolutely stoked. And he should be absolutely stoked because that was a very solid drive from Jackson Dean. Very much showing us that he is our Pro-Am champion, holding off his competition even when it doesn't actually make a massive difference. I know Jackson Dean is keen for some great racing. He certainly had that today, and the strategy execution has been on point. Let's go and take a look at our results. And Riley Nicholson, what can we say more about this man? What a performance today, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. And, 3 rounds, and he's already got a victory next to his name. He's had multiple podiums. He's pretty much been on the podium. So he's had a 100% success rate on the podium, has Riley Nicholson. So he's done a fantastic job to replace Robert Rice late on in this championship season here at Player One Sim Gears GT3 Championship for Season 2 in 2024. So he's done a fantastic job, and that's 2 victories for the Lamborghini Hurricanes. So the renaming of Catalunya for what you named it as Lamborghini Hurricane de Catalunya, or however you mentioned it, I can't wait to hear it again. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to haunt my mind for the rest of the day. That's for sure. But it is a Lamborghini time. It is the Lamborghini celebrations here, and it's great to see the Lamborghinis doing such a fantastic job. Rob Jacobs rounds up in position 2. Jackson Dean in 3rd place. Mark Pacheco, P4. Jeff Bruin rounds up in P5 overall as well. So great for him to be inside the top 5. And Aiden Chase in P1 for AM class. What a victory that was for the man there. 45 points next to his name. Some good points next to his name. Ahead of his team boss in Shane Addard in P7 as we flip over to the second page. Aiden Chase getting that victory for the first time in the 2024 as well. Troy Britnell holds on to a P2 in the AM class. Kevin Cooper and Robert Thomas rounds up the rest of the AM class. So Kevin Cooper does get himself on the podium there. Unfortunately, some DNFs next to the names of Rick Atwell for Gridline Racing, Mark Hasseldine, who was actually right up there with the challenges for Pro-Am in the early stages. Unfortunately, has a DNF next to his name. And as we saw there, Mitch Cullen, Bob Massey, Super Bob, unfortunately missed out in this race as well. Jack Finch and Graham Splint rounds up the rest of the DNSs for Group B.
That's exactly right. Yeah, a very impressive race from some, real unfortunate race for many. 4 DNSs, 2 DNFs today. Really unlucky. So Group B, unfortunately not getting the best of run, but for some, it was indeed a good run indeed. And I think I'll throw it to Nick. I think he wants to do something for the last time in season 2024. Are you gonna maybe something to do with the driver of the day? Let us know in chat who your driver of the day is, by the way. We're gonna have a little think, and I'm gonna throw it to Nick because I think there's something he wants to do. And we'll be back in a few moments' time because we have had a little bit of an internet outage once again. Nick and Andrew, can you hear me now?
Yes, I've got you
There
right
we go.
now.
We've got we're back. Okay, so ironic timing because I was just handing it to you and then my internet decided to go kaput once again here in the commentary box. Nick, over to you. We've got driver of the day coming in from chat, and I thought I'd just let you have a handle on this one again.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I don't know. It's very, very tough because we saw a lot of great racing up and down the field. So some strategy calls from Riley Nicholson who lost P2, who lost the position in P1 and lost it to Rob Jacobs, but then retook the lead and got CP Motorsports his first victory for CP Motorsports in the Pro-Am, while Aiden Chase getting his first victory in the AM division. It's very tough, and there's so many willing contenders, but I'm going to have to give my driver of the day to Riley Nicholson for CP Motorsports. 3 rounds, 3 podiums, and a victory next to his name. So what a victory! So what a time to be a driver here at MotorMotion E-Series, making your debut in the latter half of 2024, which could be a strong 2025 campaign for Riley Nicholson. So my driver of the day is going to the CP driver in the Pro-Am in Riley Nicholson.
Fantastic. I'm going to give a couple of honourable mentions here. One is going to go to Jackson Dean for that incredible defence of P3 in this race, and another to Aiden Chase for his first victory in AM class for Asta Racing. Really well done to Aiden Chase. Congratulations. But I have to agree with you, Nick. It's Riley Nicholson who's going to get my vote today. Absolutely flawless drive. Great stuff from CP Motorsport in both Group A and Group B, and that's all contributed to a fantastic weekend for Riley Nicholson. So congratulations. Andrew, your driver of the day and thoughts on the race, please.
Yeah, crack of a race once again. Group B, Group Bizarre, proved its worth again. But can I just ask, guys, did Riley Nicholson get pole position, fastest lap, and the race win again?
He got pole position, so he started on first place. I don't know if he got the fastest lap, and unfortunately, I'm not in a position to check that right now either.
No, he might not have, because I think Aiden Chase might have smashed it. But with that knowledge in mind, I'm going to have to go in a different direction. I'm going to give my driver of the day to Jackson Dean, who just had the race smarts to stay in front of Mark Pacheco, my teammate.
And you have to forgive us, ladies and gentlemen. We're having another interruption to our broadcast. We'll be back in a few moments' time. But I think what Andrew Scott was alliterating there was that Jackson Dean managed to stay ahead of Mark Pacheco all the way throughout that race. And that was an incredible bit of strategy execution. Nick and Andrew, let me know if you're back. We will be back in a moment's time. For now, I think it looks like 2 votes to Riley Nicholson, 1 vote to Jackson Dean. Let us know in chat, of course, who your driver of the day is today. Very, very important. Here we go. We are almost back in the commentary box. There we are. Andrew, unfortunately, we managed to cut the internet cable just in the middle of one of your sentences. Please continue from where you left off.
That's okay. I was just giving my kudos to Jackson Dean for my driver of the day, because he had the race smarts. So this is really a talent that you can't teach people, but I think he had the nous to realize that he needed to pit, he needed to underfuel his car and just undercut the hell out of his mate and rival Pacheco, and he managed to pull it off and stay in front of him. So the Mick Hooger scouts are really looking hard at Jackson Dean right now. That's all I can say.
Ooh, that's big news. And yes, Jackson Dean certainly going to be a sought-after name after winning Pro-Am category, and for 2025, he is looking like a real contender for the higher-up divisions as well. So let's take a quick look, of course, at our Pro-Am standings. There's really nothing to tell here at the top of the grid. Jackson Dean, of course, has one Pro-Am category. Rob Jacobs does extend his lead over Mark Pacheco with that disaster of, well, not a disaster, but not the most ideal race for Mark Pacheco for Gridline Racing. The gap between them now elevated up to 17 points. Shane Attard in P4, Mitch Collin P5, Richard Robertson P6, Robert Rice P7, and Jeff Bruin in P8. We'll have to get that updated with Riley Nicholson's name at some point. But nonetheless, that is your Pro-Am standings at the end of round 9. Let's go to Nick for Am class standings.
Well, I don't think we need to talk about Mark Hasseldean because he's already clinched the AM Division Championship, so we'll cross his name. But it is Troy Britnell that gets P2. Aiden Chase with his first victory in the 2024 campaign here at MotorMotion E-Series gets himself to 249 points, 40 points behind Troy Britnell. Kevin Cooper, the man that did the soft, hard, soft, the wacky strategy here in the AM Division, gets himself into P4, and then a couple of the retirements that we saw with Rick Atwell for Gridline Racing. Unfortunately, Super Bob, our favorite Bob Massey, RPM mates, the Diffusion Race Engineering, did not get in onto the track tonight, so unfortunately, but he still holds on to P5, still very comfortable ahead of Rick Atwell. Then Jack Finch and Graham Splint rounds up the rear of the AM Division. So we can't really talk much about Mark Hasseldean. We know he's won the championship. We know Jackson Dean's won the championship. Mick Hill is very close to winning the championship in the pro class. So 3 out of 4 champions plus the team's championship for Hassel One Motorsport. My goodness, what a campaign it's been for that team.
Truly dominant is the way we would describe Hassel One's season here in the GT3 Championship. That said, still plenty going on in the team standings. Let's go there now. Hassel One Motorsports, cross their name out at the top. They have won the team standings, but in Catalunya, it is Hooncorp Esports that elevate themselves back into a P2 with a lead now that is rather significant, I have to admit.
Ouch.
And then, of course, Gridline Racing fall back by a lot of points. That is, by my very amateur calculations here, 51-point difference in round 9. They went from 0 to separated by 51 points at Catalunya. That means that round 10 at Spa-Francorchamps next week, it is going to be a battle for P2, with the main contender being Gridline Racing and Hooncorp, who'll be wanting just to secure just a good enough result to keep their P2 spot. So this is going to be fascinating. It really, really is. Then it's Astor Racing, followed by Black Rose Racing in a battle still. Only 2 points between Black Rose and CP after a great weekend at Catalunya for CP Motorsports. Lightning Motorsports only 2 points as well, so there's really a battle going on as well for P5. It's not over yet. And then, of course, P8, Diffusion Race Engineering on 710 points. That is going to round out our broadcast for round 9. A very exciting set of racing between Group A and Group B through this track at Catalunya. Fantastic stuff. We'll get some final words from Andrew Scott first, then we'll hand the mic over for Nick Pautasso, who will round out the stream today because, of course, bear in mind, Nick Pautasso is having his last commentary box stint for Season 2 here today as he goes on holiday shortly after this broadcast is airing. So let's hand over to Ando. Your thoughts on today's racing, mate?
Yeah, great day's racing. It was action-packed. Really enjoyed it with you guys. And cheers to you, Nick. Have a great holiday, mate. And we'll see you bright and fresh next season. But I can tell you now, guys, a little bit of inside information. The team strategist for Hooncorp amateur class was actually a mole from Gridline Racing. And it still didn't do them any good, because we're still 50-odd points behind Hooncorp leading into the last round. So we've got our backs against the wall, but Gridline, don't count them out. We may well pull off a miracle come the final round.
Absolutely awesome, and we look forward to seeing what happens in that final round. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause, a digital round of applause, to Nick Pautasso, who's been in the box every week all the way through the Season 2 coverage. Big thanks to yourself, mate. You've done absolutely awesome, and your voice, as always, echoes through the chambers of the Player One SimGear GT3 Championship here in 2024.
Yeah, thank you so much, George, and thank you, Ando. And I also want to thank the MotorMotion E-Series admin for keeping me on board yet again for another season in 2024 for the GT3 Championship. I've been here since the Pilot Series in 2022. It's been a phenomenal journey for myself to see how these drivers have been working their way up throughout the years in 2022 before it made its debut last year in 2023, bringing in some big names and big sponsors. And as we can't thank our major sponsor in Player One Sim Gear for sponsoring this championship for 2 years in a row. It's an absolute pleasure to have these guys on board with us. And like I said, round 9, Catalunya, as I said, it's not my favorite track, so it's not the best track to sign off on. I would have loved to have signed off at Spa, but I'm going to be very jealous. I'm going to be watching every single minute of the coverage that you guys are going to be bringing at Spa-Francorchamps. I cannot wait. I wish I could be there with you guys, but the time has come for myself to wrap up season 2024, and what a round it has been. What a season it has been there. Hassel One Motorsport and the drivers in the elite championship that's going to be battling right towards the end. Matt Donetti and Lewis Atkinson, 3 points separating those two drivers. Who's going to take the top honors in elite class? We'll find out next week. So if you haven't already, like and subscribe to MotorMotion E-Series YouTube channel, and share it with your family, share it with your friends, share it with your mates, share it with your flatmate, share it with whoever you need to share it with, because round 10 is going to be an exciting round to conclude the 2024 championship. And also as well, go visit Player One Sim Gear for all of their stocks in racing simulations, flight simulations, as well as online gaming. And as well, if you want to keep yourself updated with the MotorMotion paddock, just go to www.motormotion.wordpress.com, and so you can find out all the information that's coming for 2025. As well, jump on our Discord, our brand new Discord, where you're going to see all the information, interact with the drivers, and also interact with the admin. They're here to help you, just like they help us bring you the coverage. And also say, as I said, we can't thank our commentary team enough in Ando Scott, the pit lane reporter, the legendary pit lane reporter in Ando Scott, and our legendary broadcaster and streamer and main commentator of the MotorMotion E-Series, George Cooke. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been an absolute honor. But for me to sign off in 2024, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for what has been an absolutely fantastic year of MotorMotion E-Series GT3 Championship. Thank you, and I hope to see you guys next year in 2025. But until then, it is good night, it is farewell, and we'll see you guys back here on YouTube for Season 4, Round 10, to conclude Season 2 of this Player One Sim Gear GT3 Championship.
And away we go here at cloudy Nürburgring GP. Everyone being cautious, they know it's a long race. Still 21 laps to go. So we just started the race, and already we're seeing so much action on track.